Hi, this is Eva for Once Upon a Timeline. Welcome, everybody. So let's see who's here. Cupid was the first, and Shari D2, my favorite people. First in. Moonlit Illusion. Mark. Futuristic. Thank you for the compliment. And yeah, never suck up to me. I agree with you. That is the way to do it. If I say something wrong, say it, but say it nicely, please. Mark is in. Kind of quiet today. David Cook, Kai Lucas Zachary, PG 2424, Eric Kane. Alcohol withdrawal being deadly is a big ME that affected me a lot after 216. I'm not sure on that one. I'm not an expert. I do know people could pass out and stuff. Yeah, that's one thing I really haven't studied. Russell Boyles, because Russell Boyles is in, because it's not really, we don't really have that in my family, so I didn't really, I don't know, I just didn't take a huge, and I don't really like the taste of alcohol, so. I assume you meant alcoholic withdrawal, actually. Let me just check that out. Alcohol withdrawal. I've definitely heard of alcoholics getting really ill. Okay, death by root. Can a person chronically dependent on alcohol really die if they abruptly stop drinking, or is this another clever excuse? Apparently, yes, you can die from alcohol withdrawal. If you go cold turkey. So I don't know, will you have to taper it, or you just have to be watched in the hospital? Oh, somebody gave me money. I hear it. Doink. $10. Woohoo! Off to a good start. Thank you. Okay, so I've known people who are heavy alcoholics that did, like, one guy almost passed out because he didn't have access to alcohol. I knew that. So I mean, a lot of people I've known, they would drink like half the day. They weren't like under the influence all day. I think those people could probably go cold turkey because they would have like half the day when they weren't drinking. So yeah, I don't like the taste of alcohol. I mean, we don't have a lot of addiction in my family, but I've also been careful to avoid certain things that I might like too much, like probably stimulants. I don't know because I haven't really tried any hard ones, but I might like those too much, so gotta be careful on those. And sugar, yes, I'm very addicted. And Diet Coke, believe it or not, I had a heck of a time quitting Diet Coke. Alcohol, no problem, but all right, so we've got a lot going on. Ooh, $14.99 from Russell Boyles. Thank you. Very much appreciate it. I'm 46, never been drunk. I've been drunk a few times. I think it's a little overrated. It's basically kind of stupid. I think some people they kind of have a part of them inside that they keep hidden, and when they drink, they can let it out. So I think that is one reason why people drink. Another one might be just to like numb themselves. Everybody's addicted to something. I gave up the Diet Coke, so sugar is probably my main one, but I go back and forth on that. So I'm not addicted to caffeine. So there are times when I might not be addicted to anything. I mean, other than air and sleep and stuff. Have I seen a blanket octopus? Yes, those have been on several times. I've known people could die of drinking too much, but dying of withdrawal is new. Could be. I just can't time in on that. I just didn't have I didn't have enough previous knowledge. Alcohol doesn't have the same taste as before. ME. Could be. I never really cared for it. I usually would drink the sugary stuff so that I didn't have to taste it. And then once I had a few, they didn't taste as bad anymore. But I have a pretty good liver, so I could actually drink a fair lot for a novice. But I actually tried it, last year. I wanted to see if my alcohol tolerance had changed any. But no, it seems about the same. We have that giant liver now. I'm like, everybody's all, oh, can you drink more? I don't know a difference. My uncle was an alcoholic, so I avoid it. I've known alcoholics. Definitely not something I would ever want to do, but like I said, it's just really not in my personal DNA to like alcohol that much. I don't really like the feeling that much. I mean, it's once in a while. It's kind of interesting, but then like once a year. All right, so we got a lot going on. Looks like we're into phase 2 of the big C global death pandemic. So here in Southern California, our wonderful governor is forcing a lot of areas in the South End to lock down again for at least 3 weeks. So bars have to close. Inside restaurants have to close. You can be open out as an outside restaurant now. So outside dining is allowed. So if you don't have inside dining, you're screwed. And bars that have inside dining, actually, bars have to close in certain counties unless they have inside dining. It's kind of confusing. They're doing a little bit. So San Diego is one of the few that has not had to lock down yet, but everybody's saying it could happen any minute. So I've been eating out a lot because I might not have another chance. Dark Wolf's in, Chanty Moody, welcome, welcome. Good morning. Yeah, my only addiction is iced coffee. So a double whammy, caffeine and sugar. Yeah, I don't know. It might just depend. I mean, if you're sucking it down all day and you're like dependent on sugar, that might be a problem. Yeah, there is no. I know. Kai Lucas Zachary. I know. Broadnet's Caster, greeting from San Diego. Yes. Are you also in San Diego? Woohoo! What county are you going to get locked down already? The July disease of the month is TR swine flu. I did hear that there's talking about some other flu. Oh, it has pandemic potential and blah, 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 blah. First beer flu and now bacon flu. Yep. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of cover so this is our local informational bulletin here, so I can kind of keep up on stuff. And the interesting stuff is actually this news briefing slides. I mean, like, that's where I actually find the slides that I care about. All the rest of this stuff is... So why are we locking down? I know for San Diego, basically, they're saying that our breakouts are, like the C breakouts are up. By a few. So one of the things I was looking at is like what the F counts as a breakout. So now remember, we're doing a lot more testing now. So I expect them to find more breakouts because before you had to be really sick in the hospital or really in bad shape or like famous in order to get a test. So there was probably like thousands and thousands and thousands of people who had, kind of bad flu, and they told them to go home and you'll get better on your own. And it probably there were tons of breakouts, but if you didn't get really sick in the hospital, then they're not going to know about it because they're not going to test you. Okay, so now I'm like, well, what is a breakout? What are they counting as? Because before they used to say, 17 people got sick at blah, blah show. That was a breakout. Okay, so now I'm looking up the California definition of a breakout. So if in a skilled nursing facility, one case of laboratory confirmed C in a resident, one resident gets the C, that's a breakout. Okay, even if nobody else in there ever gets it, if one is confirmed with the C, that's a breakout. In other residential congregate settings, I assume that they mean like a family or something. At least one case of lab confirmed C in the setting, and greater than or equal to 2 cases of acute illness compatible with the C in residents or staff members within a 14-day period. So that means one person gets the C, and then like maybe 2 weeks later, somebody gets flu-like symptoms. Then that would still count as a breakout, even though if we don't know that that second person even had the C. So, in congregate community, so I'm guessing this is some kind of like homes or something, but it's not nursing facilities. In congregate community settings, you need 3 or more lab-confirmed cases of the C in different households in a cluster of acute illnesses compatible. So in a community setting, you'd need like 3 cases, and they would have to be in different households. Okay, so that's a little bit more reasonable, but basically over here in any kind of nursing homes or anything, 1 case would be enough. That is now a outbreak. So I think it's pretty easy to have an outbreak. I mean, if you imagined outbreaks of flu, there'd be like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of outbreaks all the time. But I think we have like 8 outbreaks or something. It was just some kind of smallish number, 8 or 10 in the last week or 2. But if you think that some of these are just like one person, I don't know. Okay, so these are more local numbers. Hospital daily census in San Diego. This is for the C only. And the yellow is for ICU cases, and the blue is for just being in the hospital. So even if you were in there like 5 minutes, if you were hospitalized for 5 minutes, then you get in the blue. Okay, so it does kind of look like we had a little bit higher since 6/22, and this is up until like a few days ago, so it's pretty recent. So it kind of like if the news just showed you this, and then maybe if they stretch these numbers out on the side here, so like 100 was way up there, then that would really make it look like it went boing. You know, a lot of it depends on how you stretch these numbers. If you stretch these numbers with more spaces, then it makes things like sharp. Okay. So our local gov has not been too bad about, they kind of hide this info, but they're not really biasing it too bad by the way they make the charts here. But what you tend to see is you won't even see this on the news ever. Like I said, it's hidden over there in like news slides, but the news never ever has them on the news, even though they're news slides. Okay, so that's just the C cases in San Diego, only hospitalized ones. Okay, so it looks like a little bit of a spike. You might, looks like it's going up. Okay, so let's look at all the cases of everybody in the hospital. So now this yellow is all the C cases, and this blue now is every other case for anything else that has nothing to do with C, like they don't have any C. So if they got hit by a car and they have the C, they're in this yellow one, okay? But if they just have no symptoms of C, then they're in the blue. So as you can see, C is like a smallish portion of our hospitalized, okay? And the total bed capacity is this top purple line here. These are reserved for the C. As you can see, we never even get to there. So our regular capacity is about 6,000, and this has been flat as a pancake at about 4,000 out of 6,000 for months. No matter what they say is happening, oh my God, the cases are exploding and the blah, blah, blah. It has been exactly like this, with this just straight across, just psh, I mean, like, it's ridiculous. It's hard for me to take any of it seriously when this just does not budge. The number of hospitalized with the C and the number of blue, I mean, it kind of bounces slightly, but it's very little. Hey, somebody just gave me money. Where is it? Live streaming. Futuristic, 10 more bucks. Woohoo! Chat revenue up to $28. Thank you. Can't keep track of everything. Things are wild. Liquid cooling was fresh in the 90s. Huh. When did you hear about them for the... Okay, I missed some of that conversation. Liquid cooling computers. It's vaguely familiar, just the concept of liquid cooling. I don't really remember anything about computers. What meteorite? Have you heard of the meteorite passed between the moon and Earth somewhere around 2 weeks ago? Oh, is that green one? There's like meteorites every 5 minutes now. Have been on lockdown from the start in Poway. What, Poway never unlocked? Well, that sucks. I mean, we never totally unlocked, but they did like let restaurants open, and like they let haircuts. Thankfully, they let the haircuts start again recently. Spikes could have something to do with the riots. Yeah, see, that's another thing. Okay, I think that's really interesting. We have all the riots, but the spikes are just, it looks like it's mostly just in positive cases, and testing has gone way up. Some areas, the percentage of positives have gone up some, but the hospital visits for C do not seem to have gone up. Now, hospital use has gone up, but we have like a 2 to 3 month backlog of sick people who weren't allowed to do any surgeries. So I expect it to go up because they're going to be ramming through a bunch of surgeries now, people that have been waiting. I have a small cough and a runny nose. Wah. I mean, it could just be ordinary flu, but you know, it could be the C because the C only has 0.26% death rate. So like it's barely above flu. So it's like this year's flu. It's an extra nasty flu. I hope you'll feel better. I got a fish for you to look up. A fish with a beak. A fish with a beak. Okay, tell me what the name of it is. Spikes have been shown to be more related to reopening than protests. You know, I've been kind of looking, and some places are really showing that spikes are related to lockdowns. They were checking states, and a lot of states were starting to drop in cases, and then they locked down, and it shot up. I'm like, did they increase testing when they locked down? I haven't quite sorted that mess out. The swimming pools are open here now, but we have just 3 hours for using it, and then you sit there with a mask. Yeah, that's really comfy. There are theories saying that the riots are centrally controlled. I do think that it's all happening for a reason this way. I'm not sure what's behind it. Is it just... woohoo! Dark Wolf, since when do you have $12.34, which is a very strange number, but thank you so much. Fixed with beaks that eat. Okay, if you're talking about those bitey fish, I have seen those, like those little coral biters. I guess I was thinking of like a bird beak, but... Okay, so back to the story. All right, so this is why I'm kind of like laughing at the whole thing, at least for San Diego, because it's just been flat. It's still flat. As of a couple days ago, it was totally flat. This one is ICU. So these are COVID and these are non-COVID, and then there's current capacity. This has been really flat as well. You can see it just... Bear in mind, a lot of these people are sick. These ICU people that have the C are really sick with other things. You know, we've got Alzheimer's patients with the C. They're going to be in here with something this year because they're at the end of their life term. So I tend to think this is a little padded, that even if there was no C, they would be in there with something. Because when you get really sick and you're at the end of your life, when you get, your body is breaking down, then whatever germ comes along basically kicks your butt because your immune system is just not working anymore. So even if there was no C, I suspect that the majority of these blue range ones would still be here, just as part of the normal numbers. All right, so I just kind of wanted to show that, and this is why I just laugh at the San Diego lockdown. It has not budged. The ICU cases haven't budged. I actually would have expected these to go up considering all of the backlog of hospital cases, but it hasn't happened. Doink, doink. All right, outbreaks, got you. All right, so this is an interesting one. So they're locking down. It's several of the local places were trying to actually end the masks. Like I believe it was it Riverside or Imperial? Two of the local counties were ending the masks last week, and our governor ordered them not to, and then now he's ordering them all to shut down. So all these places like restaurants that don't have any outdoor dining, bars that don't have dining, they're screwed. I mean, they just came off a long lockdown, and now it's 3+ more weeks, and you can almost imagine it's not going to end at 3 weeks. So he's got it all sorted out now, how he's going to scare the crap out of you if you don't obey. So he has worked out that he's going to send a strike team if you don't shut down. So he's not relying on the local police. Maybe the local police don't care and they're not going to help out, especially certain counties way up northeast on the state were like thumbing their nose at the governor on some of this stuff. So he's not relying on the police now. He's going to send a strike team, which may be made of alcoholic beverage control. I assume that's if you sell alcohol. Cal OSHA, the Department of Business Oversight, the Department of Consumer Affairs, and CHP. Okay, so they will send one officer, will enforce compliance. It's unclear what penalties a business might incur. So basically, they're going to send like 5 or 6 different agencies at you to come up with anything they can find to fine the crap out of you. So like they could say that like the Department of Health, I also heard is sometimes listed. So they could fine you for unsafe work conditions. OSHA could fine you for the same thing. Unsanitary condition, whatever. They could now give, one person who didn't shut down, they sent the family services after her, trying to insinuate that she wasn't taking care of her kids properly. There was no evidence of that, but obviously it scared her really badly. So basically they're sending one of every agency that they possibly think could make your life miserable and fine you. So it won't be just one person you're dealing with. Basically it's a lawyer's nightmare here. So that's, it's pretty heavy-handed, let's just say. He's not going to put you in jail, but he could ruin you for life if enough of these agencies go after you. So yeah, and then he's all vague about exactly what'll happen, and not cool, not cool. So some other weird stuff. I was listening to the radio today, and California started this rule, I think it was like a year ago, where you have to pay for the plastic bags that the grocery stores give you. They used to give them out free, but they wanted Californians to not use a lot of plastic bags, so you have to pay for them. And so they temporarily ended that during the sea because like the bags might have germs, don't touch anything. This whole, people were spraying down their mail with alcohol, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now suddenly today, they have reenacted the bag rule. You can use recycled bags now. And the reasoning behind it was weird because they said on the news, because the CDC says no one has gotten COVID from an exposed surface so far. There's been no documented cases of getting the C from exposed surface. So all this baloney about, wiping the surfaces, which they have not ended, but yet no one there are no documented cases. So I've been hunting and hunting for this information that they keep repeating on the radio, like where the CDC says that. And not surprisingly, I can't find diddly squat on there. I'm hoping that maybe somebody else scrounged that up. I just heard of it today. So, but I did find that CDC now says that the sea does not spread easily from surfaces. So there's another flip-flop along with the asymptomatic spreads most of it to the asymptomatic spreads almost none of it to yes, they kind of spread most of it, but only in models, but not in real life. There's that one. And then there's the no mask, yes mask flip-flop. Now we've got the surfaces will kill you. No, wait. No, they won't flip-flop. So basically, they're just saying will not spread easily right now. I suspect that it may be true that there's no cases of the surfaces because of this study that I was able to find out. Whoops. I'm like, how many more of these flip-flops of the CDC do we need before people start noticing that something is fishy? Chances of correct. So anyway, I'm going to keep talking about this world news stuff, and then when I'm done, we'll get to the Mandelas. The CDC is like the ultimate flip-flop Mandela, except for they don't cover their old tracks. Okay, so remember all that time when they said they found the sea on surfaces? But I'm wondering what test they used, because if they use that PCR test, then any proteins that the sea has will show up as a positive test. But even if the virus is dead, it will still show positive. So that's one of the arguments they made for when pets show positive, is like there's no way to know if the virus is actually alive inside the pet, or it just breathed in some germs and the germs died. So when they were testing the surfaces and found the sea, was that live active virus? All right, so Israeli study. Dum dum dum. It's funny because like the news is just not covering much of this, so everybody is still paranoid about surfaces. And all right, so the Israelis started actually like swabbing stuff that sea infected people had, like phones. Okay, you're putting mobile phones, you're putting it up to your mouth. If anything is going to get contaminated with the sea, it should be phones, right? If you have the sea and you're yapping on your phone all day, your phone should be massively contaminated. Dum, dum, dum. All right, and when did this occur? It was an older study, 5/18, so 6/18, so that's like over a month and a half ago. And weirdly, it's saying, like, when I was looking this up, they're saying this is not new information. This information has been circulating for months. Like, I have not heard of this information for months. The news has been telling everybody to, like, leave their mail in the garage and wash their shoes with alcohol because of deadly surfaces, and you have to wear gloves and blah, blah. Okay, so accordingly now, initial results of the study are reported for the first time. Basically what they're saying is they couldn't find any active virus on anything, and they weren't cleaned. Series of bizarre precautions, such as the recommendation that books returned to libraries be separated and disinfected. I know they were doing special mail disinfection and all this stuff, and that was slowing down a lot of the mail rooms. As far as I know, they're still doing that. Okay, the study examined samples from the corona wards at Asuta, Ashdod, and blah, blah, blah. Some samples were even taken from patients' cellular devices. From the beginning, I haven't believed that there was much transfer from surfaces or spread via surfaces. We have no epidemiological proof of anyone contracting the virus from surface contact. Okay, that was a month and a half ago. That's as close as I've been able to corroborate the CDC saying it, that a month and a half ago there was no evidence. To my best of our knowledge, is the first study that has looked into the presence of live viruses on surfaces, and as of now, we haven't proved that it is even possible to contract the virus from surfaces. The second stage of the study took samples from items. The results of the viruses found on the surface will be available in a few days. Okay, so when I was reading this in another location, basically they said that there were not like live virus, so it was not possible to like contract the virus. You know, like you can't, a tick's not going to bite you if it's dead. It's dead. So, interesting. Okay, so the whole surfaces paranoia appears to have been basically debunked, although you never can tell because we can just do another 5 or 10 more flip-flops on this. But for now, you can't get, apparently it's highly unlikely, like never once ever seen in the history of ever. And now that we have all this contact tracing, they probably should have been able to figure out if somebody got it from a surface, but apparently no. This one's coming up. This is regular Mandelas. All right, so second wave yet. I could have told you this because I've been very much watching the numbers using that all-cause deaths thing. But the one thing about the all-cause deaths is it's a couple weeks behind. So this one is very recent. I believe that it's up to this stats are up to like just a few days ago. So basically, deaths dropping by 90%. The C virus death since April 21. So it's 90% down since April 21. You know, it could be that April 21 wasn't the highest number, but whatever. Basically, it's way down. Down nearly 10% from last Sunday. Interesting. Well, I should actually check out this tracking project thing later. We have set new lows for deaths for 9 straight weeks. 9 straight weeks. That seems like a pretty big story that should be leading newscasts and websites everywhere. Yeah, it should. Woohoo! Down for 9 straight weeks. But nope, we're all going to die and the second wave is here, apparently. They're mostly only talking about positive cases, though, and since testing is up. All right, anyway, this guy, I just thought it was interesting because that is very recent numbers. Got that one. All right, I'm almost done with the world news. The only other thing I just wanted to kind of mention, okay, the way this thing is playing out, I'm like either super geniuses are behind it or whoever's behind the Mandela. I mean, whatever's driving the Mandela, I think is really the ultimate source of this thing because it is just super genius. I just can't imagine mere humans. You know, most humans can't even pull off a decent, can't even run their company decently, not to mention the pure genius and overarching pre-planning that has gone into this. And one of the things that I really noticed is, okay, so you have the sea, and then you have this right after the lockdown is over. First of all, you start getting these protests by the so-called right-wingers. I think that it's not that simple as just being the anti-lockdown protests. So, of course, the liberals are all like, oh, you're spreading the virus and you're so stupid, right? So then right after them, they open up, and then you have these giant, like, BLM protests, right? And so now the GOP, you know, and some scared people are like, you stupid liberals, you're going to kill us all by spreading the virus. So now it's like the pot calling the kettle black, you know. So both sides have taken pot shots at these protests. Be very careful because the minute you try to block one side from protesting, you've just blocked yourself from protesting. So if you're advocating police violence against protesters, what happens when you are the next protester? What happens if you want to do another anti-lockdown protest and you just gave the police the go-ahead to beat on these BLM protesters? You might be next. And the same thing with you BLM protesters. If you're advocating, cracking down on this GOP, then you're advocating losing your own rights as well. So both of the sides better be very careful what they ask for, because you can't ask it for that side without coming down on yourself. And, it is in our Constitution to have these rights. So whoever you want to finger point at, be very careful about what rights you expect to take away from someone else because you hate them, because you're taking that right away from yourself. So I just wanted to make that point, that these protests have not only given they've driven the division further. So it's like an excuse to have higher numbers, although I'm not really seeing them. But now you can blame it on these BLM protesters, and then, maybe we shouldn't allow these protests. So what happens 6 months from now if all of us want to protest, or there's really even more reason to protest? If you've been fighting the protesters up till now, you've kind of made your bed. So just something to think about. Okay. So now there is one aspect of the sea that I've noticed that to me is a Mandela. It is not really a political thing. And it is this. I have never heard of this business. And it's these phylopedias that apparently I have freaking never heard of. A phylopedia tentacles. I swear this timeline loves its tentacles. Tentacles are the word of the era. All right, so another thing on the list of the magical sea that can cause everything. I'm still waiting for it to cause the other big sea, which is Cancer. I think we'll get there. But right now... So I've never heard of this. Viruses, excuse me, some of them apparently can cause your cells to grow tentacles. And the tentacles are called phylopedia. How the sea causes infected human cells to sprout tentacles loaded with viral venom. Viral venom. Interesting. To help it spread around the body in a process scientists call sinister. All right, so apparently, and then in some places they're saying tentacles which cause cells to surf to other cells. Surf. I'm like, okay, phylopedia, it sounds like feet, okay? It doesn't really sound like tentacles. This is kind of confusing me. You've got cells and they're in their spot, like say your lung cells. They're sitting there. They shouldn't be surfing around, okay? So phylopedia, pedia is feet. So it's not really tentacles, the word is feet. So, and then they're saying it surfs around. That makes it sound like your cell is like moving around. So if you have a lung cell, I always learn that all the cells are all smooshed up together and like glued together. They don't surf around. So if you wanted to say it grew a tentacle and poked its neighboring cells, wouldn't you just say it grew a tentacle and poked its neighboring cells? Why are they saying it's surfing around, and why are they calling these feet, pedia? So that's really weird. And they're saying that some other cell viruses do this too, including HIV and vaccinia. I have never heard of HIV growing. So these are these phylopedia right here. I have never heard of this freaking thing. It's totally tripping me out. I'm not sure how these would cause a cell to surf, but I'm wondering if this is kind of a foreshadow of where it's going. Because right now they're just tentacles. I don't see that they're going to surf, and these don't look like feet. But will they really start like moving around? Will the cell really like, it'll start to look like a sea virus itself with all the I mean, like your cell becomes like a little mini C virus. I don't know. This is just weird. This is so sinister that the virus uses other mechanisms, including other viruses, including HIV and Vicinia, a member of the virus family that causes smallpox. Okay, so Vicinia is smallpox. Use Phyllopedia as a way to spread infection through the body. See, it just seems to me like it would just spread to the neighboring cell. What do they mean through the body? Okay, and then here it's saying just because there's tentacles doesn't mean it's behaving as a second mode of spreading, even though the article at the top said that. But we don't yet know what stage of infection is happening. It would be great fun to find out. It's kind of a weird statement. All right, so there's drugs that block the growth of Phyllopedia, 7 existing. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. So this is just weird. The whole Phyllopedia thing is tripping me out. I have never heard of that. And the way they're saying it, see here it says loaded with viral venom. Then you go down to that scientist and he goes, oh, we don't know if there's even infection that way. But everybody's like hundreds of articles are saying that these Phyllopedia allow them to surf to other cells. So weird. So again, we've got the super virus that can cause like 27 other illnesses supposedly. And now it has feet. All right, so that's the end of the C part of the show. I'm going to get into some other stuff. All right, so here's one. This is probably means almost nothing to you guys, but it does mean that something has shifted recently, because these are beetle wings, and they are iridescent on the outer surface, this blue, and then on the undersurface, they're like this dark brown black color. And I sell these freaking things, like, I sell a batch like every day. These are really good sellers. So today, I yank out some to sell, and I'm looking at them and go, well, this one is broken. And then I look and I'm like, they all have it. And you can kind of see it here. I really should have taken a better picture, but right here, there's kind of like now on the back, it used to just be hollow, but now there's this extra groove right here. So I'm like, this one is defective. It has this funky split. And so then I grab the next one and it has a funky split. And then this one has they all have it now. Like today, I mean, it couldn't have been more than a few days that this thing has shown. And the other thing that they all suddenly have was this little stem. Never saw that before. And now they all have it. And this is actually my old photo. And you can see the stems are on there. I actually had to check this because I'm like, well, do my old photos show the stems? Because sometimes the new stuff shows up, but my photos don't have it. But yes, my old photos have these freaking stems on them, which are kind of a hassle. And they don't even pinch off easy. You have to kind of cut them with the scissors. And I'm telling you, I'm not cutting off every stem. So people are just going to have to deal with it. But yeah, so these guys have changed in the last. This kind of thing happens to me all the time at work. I yank something out. Oh, this one's broken. It's defective. It's mutated because it's different than the other 5,000 times I have looked at the same item and sold it. And I go to get a better one, and they're all like that. So this is like one reason I can't forget about the Mandela. Even when I'm at work, this stuff happens like once a week. Some stupid little change. Oh, there's a giant hole in the nose region of the skull. It's broken. I go, and they're all like that. This tooth is funky. Nope, they're all. It makes me crazy. And, you know, some of my processes are not like sometimes it interferes with some of my stuff too. Like the ends of the bones, they keep morphing, and I picked an end of the bone. When I drill the bones for beads, I pick an end according to which end is the easiest to drill, like the fat, hard end. And now that stuff's changing, and now it's getting hard to drill some of that because it's getting pointy on the end, and then I got to move the hole. But now the photos got the hole in the old place, even though that place is a stupid decision now, even though it was the right decision a year ago, and it makes me crazy. All right, so enough whining. Yoink, yoink, yoink. All right, I'm going to see what you guys are up to. Ooh, somebody gave me more money, I think, because there's like $41 there now. I don't know how I got that. I think that was that one. Boink. Nope, Dark Wolves is the last one. It must have just equaled that. Dark Wolves. Seems like I'm missing a bunch. There's got to have been a lot of yapping since Dark Wolf talked. That was a long time ago. Yeah, see, it didn't update there. People are testing who aren't sick. Who knows what they report on? Yeah, see, that's the other thing. The tests haven't even been verified. We don't know if they cross-react with other C viruses. So supposedly there's a whole bunch of C viruses that normally cause the flu. So, I mean, like, how do we even know this one's that different? And when people test positive for the C, how do we know that it's not dead C from like 2 months ago? That wasn't even the 19 version. See, now they're pushing, like, test everybody at your entire workplace, even though they look totally fine because they may be asymptomatic, which spreads a lot of the virus, but now, no, it doesn't hardly spread any of it, according to what time of day the CDC happens to be talking on. Good morning from Austria, Julie Spooney, good morning. David Cook, I don't think I said hi to you either. Have I seen Draco volans? I have. Those are those little lizards that look like little dragons. I'm just going to take a quick peek at these because they're always changing. More and more neck things. Oh, yeah. See, the arms are coming away from the main body now. I can see it already. I talked a little bit about this last time. When these first came out, these wing thingies were attached to the arms. So they were like, you know, when you were a kid and you played with the towel, you would hold the edges of the towel and say that they were wings. That's how it was. So I noticed that the arms were starting to detach from the wings. So they are like wing things instead of just fans on the bottom of your armpits. So now you see all these images with the bent arms. So it's very obvious that the arms are, now these are actual wings instead of just flaps on the arms. So yeah, interesting. Now here is more like what I saw before. And I don't know if this one is attached or not, or that he's just holding his arms there voluntarily. But last time I looked, you could not see many images of clearly the arms being separated. It was like this. Okay, so see here, you can see now these are actual separate wings. So they're getting more dragon-like. There's I think the arms are separate on that one. More and more styles of them. We're seeing them from different angles. Look at that. It looks like a half bat. So yeah, they're definitely looking more dragoniferous. I think we do have quite a number of shifts to go before we wow, there's more styles of these every time. Is that a real one? No, it's just a totem. Okay. Derp, derp, derp. More colors. Yeah, see there, it's obviously separate now. So they are like little wings. This one's interesting because it's kind of attached to the bottom legs. I've not seen that before. So yeah, they're cute. Not too much change. There's more and more styles. But that one has kind of a different shape. These are one of my favorite cute little Emmys because they just keep changing. More and more whack-doodle. All right. So, Draco volans. Songs that are catchy is in for the party. First munch. Type in freaky tropical fish. It will come up with the image I came across yesterday. Look for a fish to sculpt out of stone. Freaky tropical fish. All right, I'll give it a shot. Let's see if there's any new ones in this party. Nope. All right, some of these are going to be photoshopped. Sometimes you really got to hunt. Like this one, is that real? Things on Pinterest tend to be... See, that looks like it's photoshopped to me. I think that... you can't really trust... See, like that one too. I'm pretty sure that's photoshopped. That one's not... Ugh, the goldfish. I'm sure they'll blame it on breeding, but that's pretty gross. Not really seeing any new ones that I haven't seen like months ago. These blobfish. Oh, look, it's got like eyebrows now. Oh, no, that's not blobfish. That's long lure fish. Okay. Frogfish. Those are the ones that kind of walk on the ground. Kind of an older Mandela. Strained horned fish found in Darwin. Scares fishermen. Huh. I haven't seen that one before, but I don't think we know what it is yet, do we? Alright, no, there's more of them. Nuisance fish. Sea robin. The new salmon. Nuisance fish, sea robin. Alright, I'm going to click on it. Did they taste good? I think we should get more tasty fish. Seafood can be expensive, but for around $2 a pound, would you try this odd-looking nuisance fish? Yeah, if it tastes good. Blah. Prehistoric bottom feeder with spiny legs and pectoral fins that open and close like wings during swimming. Also known as gurnards. The biggest thing is it's cheap. They have low meat to size ratio, can be hard to clean efficiently. It doesn't say how they taste. Sold for bait. Well, I don't know. I'll eat them if they're tasty. All right. Since when does anybody care what something looks like anyway? So the story is this guy freaked out seeing this, but there's all these, but they're actually just pest fish. Yeah, I've never seen those before. Yeah, a lot of weird fish, but I've covered that one. All these lure fish. All these funky, fish rain in London. I covered some of that raining fish stuff. Yeah, I don't really see anything I haven't seen lately. Not that there aren't a new bunch of weird ones all the time. Tired of the masks. Yeah, I don't really like them, but you know, some places are starting to say that, like, even when you're, like, say if you go into the office and you got 6 foot distance, you still have to wear the mask, and that would be so irritating. You know, luckily I kind of work on my own, so nobody knows what I'm doing, and I can do whatever I want, and I'm not required to wear a mask anyway. I noticed a lot of the people, like at restaurants, they put the mask down so their nose sticks out so they can get decent air. And then when they kind of come near people, they kind of pop it back up. You know, it's got to be hard, like trying to suck air through that thing like all day. I can't breathe very long with it. Yeah, you know, I know people with like older people that have breathing problems, and it's very hard on them to wear that mask. You know, you just, when you get... If you have breathing problems or if you're not really healthy, you're not getting a lot of extra oxygen, and you really need to have all the oxygen you could get. And just having that extra carbon dioxide rebreathing is just enough to push people over. So it really sucks. Yeah, I've seen that oxygen, the guy does the oxygen meter. Yeah, I mean, it's just common sense. It actually, if you get those ones with the little vents in the front, the cool flow ones, it helps. I'm not saying it's great, but it lets air in and out more. Moss don't work against the sea. Yeah, Miss J, I know what you're saying. I think that there are, as much as I sympathize with that, I have to tell the truth. Um, there is no, there is a liability reason why they put that on there. So maybe it helps with the sea, maybe it doesn't. Then you got to go into whether you even believe virus theory in the current reality. I mean, I think virus theory was legit in the old reality. I don't know about here. Everything is different here. So I don't know how it's going to spin out. I mean, maybe virus theory, germ theory, I should say, will get overturned in the next reality. I don't know, but so if you're a company and people are buying your mask and you're not 100% sure that your mask will protect, then for liability reasons, you're just going to go with no, it won't. And you're going to write that on there. You don't know if it will or not. You hope it does, but you don't know for sure. For liability reasons, to cover your butt, you're going to write no. So just because you wrote no doesn't mean that it won't help at all. Nobody said it is 100%. So by saying just, they know you're going to buy it anyway. So they wrote that to cover their butt. So I don't think it means a lot in that case that they wrote that. I do that at work all the time. I kind of actually make stuff sound maybe a little bit worse than what it'll look like when they really get it, because I don't want to hear any complaints. If people expect a certain thing and it's 5% under par, they get pissed. But if people expect a certain thing and it's 5% over par, then they're happy. So it's kind of especially in the era of liability and reviews, like eBay reviews and stuff, you have to kind of strategize a bit. They're going to do that here too, pay for bags and get rid of plastic straws. Yeah, it's just so weird because first there was this giant panic about the surfaces and now suddenly you don't need to clean. But they say this, that there's been no cases of connecting it with the surfaces, catching it with the surfaces, but then like everybody's got to go around cleaning the surfaces all day anyway. I mean, once they enact a rule, they never change it, even when the evidence now says you could quit. Another example is the freaking taking your shoes off at the airport. I mean, like, first of all, that story has changed because in my timeline, he got some weird chemicals in his shoe, and he tried to sneak in the bathroom and mix them and make a bomb, and it never worked, and they did smell something funny, and they caught him. And then it's now switched to him trying to light his shoe on fire and like other people seeing him doing that. But here's the thing that's weird. I mean, you're allowed to carry a baggie of 3-ounce chemicals with you, multiple 3-ounce little poobahs in there, and you can hide way more chemical and toxic stuff in that baggie in plain sight and carry it right through, and they have no idea what those liquids are, than you'd ever hide in your shoe. So why would you try to hide it in your shoe? You could just carry it in a bag, so why are we still taking our freaking shoes off? It's just stupid. Just scan it through with the rest. It's not, I mean, just so many things are like that. We're going to be cleaning surfaces for years, even well after nobody has ever contracted C from a surface. What all that means is after being worn are biohazard waste. Well, if the C can't survive on surfaces, then you can just store that in the drawer for a few days and it is now completely safe. In fact, they were recommending sticking them in the oven for a while to just sanitize them. So, because the virus isn't going to stay on there forever. I mean, even if it's even on there, there's so many questions. But assuming that germ theory is legit and this is not all total baloney, logic would suggest that in a few days it'll be fine. Keep moving forwards, listen to your instincts, live your own life. Yeah, generally, I don't know. Some people's instincts are wacky, though. Some people's instincts are to blame everything on someone else and try to control people and blah, 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 and hate this people and pick a side. And so it's kind of tricky. Consult your higher self or something, but find your inner peace. Hard to find people who see behind the veil. Yeah, I've seen some, and people are waking up more. Like people who never distrusted anything are starting to distrust the story of the sea. But a lot of them are people who are small business people who are already pissed at it. So that is kind of a bias too. Have worn a NIOSH mask while airbrushing. I never felt like, oh my God, I can't breathe. Sucking in noxious cloying fumes is so much more of a present risk. I agree with you, but there's two cases. Okay, first of all, you're probably sitting on your butt when you're airbrushing. You're not like exercising really hard. You are probably quite healthy and you are able to your lungs are able to perform that extra work. Now, they have shown that you are rebreathing your carbon dioxide, but if you're quite healthy, your body can make up for it. You probably don't do it for 8 to 10 hours every freaking day. The amount of time that you do it for affects how much it influences you. So amount of time, your health, your age, and how much exercise you're doing. So most of the cases when those masks are used, people are usually standing performing surgery, or they're going in and out so they don't have to wear it all the time, or they're the exceptions would be some of the construction people, but even then, and then it's cost benefit ratio, because the stuff you would get otherwise is far worse than just breathing a little carbon dioxide. So then with the C though, I mean, if your chances of getting the C are less than getting run over by a car or getting killed in a car accident on the way to work, now look at the cost benefit ratio. So yeah, I wear a mask when I'm sanding, but I'm just doing it for an hour and I'm healthy. And then if I feel out of breath or tired, I stop. And I'm not like jogging up and down the aisles and stuff. So, and if I was old and sickly, I wouldn't be doing it. So, you're not forced to do it because you picked your job. You're not like my friend who's 75 and she's not very healthy, and wearing a mask makes her pass out. But in order to go shopping, she has to, So you got to look at the whole picture. Information keeps changing from the CDC months down the road and still stump. I really think it might be kind of a Mandela. I mean, it's not really a Mandela, but it's a timeline strategy to wake people up. You're either going to be in for a penny, in for a pound, and just go with every twist and completely defend your ridiculousness, or you're going to start to see flip, flop, flip, flop, flip. How many flip flops? I kind of predicted this, and I think we're going to see more ridiculous statements. So nobody has ever gotten the C from surfaces, so clean your surfaces. Keep cleaning them. I've noticed this more and more, studies saying no evidence was found of this, but do this anyway. Masks don't work, but wear them anyway to protect other people, because if you don't, you're killing your grandma. We have to test all the asymptomatic spreaders, even though there are very few asymptomatic spreaders. It doesn't make any sense, and it continues to make less and less sense. This is all about bringing the NWO and the Antichrist as well as Mark of the Beast. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I think it's all a storyline. I'm just not sure how much of it is even real. Even if this storyline comes to pass, I mean, I just think it's like a movie, The Bible predicts the end of the movie, and we're in the movie, Is it real or is it a movie? Like in a movie, somehow the good guys always get like lucky at the end. They never, against all odds, they survive. And when you look at these movies, I mean, it really is against all odds. And how do they do it with this attitude? Well, I'm going to do it no matter what. And it's completely illogical. The whole concept of most movies is ridiculous. Like the amount of lucky breaks they get and the amount of chances they take. It's really interesting. So I'm kind of looking at life more like that. So even if the NWO and the Antichrist come and stuff, I still think it's kind of like a movie. And like the Bible is saying, you know, don't fear, have faith, learn your lessons. The bad stuff can't get you if you have the right attitude. Reverse speech coming to the forefront. Maybe, I don't know a lot about that one. I was wondering about the correlation between the ME and paranormal activity. I think we're going to see a lot more paranormal stuff. You know, if this is a dream, then if this is like a dream sim movie thing, anything could happen. You know, anything can get projected onto the screen. A lot of the assumptions we had, I think, are going to go out the window, and there's going to be a lot more weird stuff. Should be interesting anyway. I mean, we're already seeing a lot more weird stuff. All this weird weather phenomena, meteors, very weird coincidences. I am immunosuppressed, and I can say this is so confusing and frustrating. I'm precautious because of all the germs, but it's so damn frustrating not to know how dangerous it really is. You know, I would be cautious if you are immunocompromised, but I just to be on the safe side, you know, but yeah, the CDC is not really helping anything, is it? I think the biggest danger is stressing yourself out. I really do. So I think that is the real thing. Go outside, get some sunlight, get some vitamin D. I don't think that the air when no one's around is going to get you. I don't think that walking on the ground is make you sick. There's no evidence for it. But try not to stress out, I think, is number one. I think the fear is much more dangerous than the rest of it. You sleep bad, your immunity's down, you feel crappy, you're angry at people, confused. I think that's the biggest danger, really. Does anyone know anyone who is seeing the weird things that come with the ME but say ME is nonsense? I do see a lot of indicators of MEs. So like people who don't believe in the ME but say they believe in chemtrails. So what I'm seeing is like the chemtrail channels will say, that's funny, the sun looks like a different color, the sky looks too milky, the stars look different. And they're blaming it on the chemtrails, like the atmosphere. Okay, the chemtrails are changing the atmosphere, which is changing the appearance of the sky and the amount of clouds. Okay, so they're blaming it on that. Then you've got this whole theory of like famous stars being replaced by copies. Okay, and then they'll go and they'll go, look, her face looks different. I remember she used to look like this, but now she looks like that. And I think she's been replaced by a copy. But, you know, we that follow the Mandela, we know that the faces are changing. So if the face looks different than they remember, they're not going to think reality is magically changing. To them, it makes more sense to think she's a different person, like a clone, a copy, a look-alike. Maybe she got plastic surgery. So they're blaming it on that. I see this stuff all the time. Some people are saying it's a giant psyop, you know, because they haven't seen it in real life and they're not really looking for it. You know, like things that I've noticed, I see it all the time, let's just say. I see people commenting on it, like how some of the holiday locations have changed. I hear people around me going, that's funny, I don't remember it ever being on a Wednesday, you know, Veterans Day or whatever, which one that's floating now. It used to be always on a Monday for me. I'll hear other people say they never heard of that. Like one of my coworkers is like, for some reason they changed it this year. They changed the location of that holiday this year. And then I look it up and it's always been like that. But he just, so yes, people are seeing it. They have other explanations that they come up with. And you've all heard the old, oh, it's just the logo changes, the company has done a rebrand, that kind of thing. I was thinking CERN opened portals across the world. The thing is, okay, so how and what's the portals do and how do you know it's portals? And, it's all just theory with no evidence. That's the trouble. So I can kind of see like what's happening. We can observe what we see has changed and we can look for patterns, but what's really behind it, there's really not much evidence for it. I mean, my theory doesn't have any evidence. It's just my personal theory. And so that's the way I feel about portals too. I just, you could say CERN opened portals. CERN broke reality. And none of these make any more sense than anything else because I don't know anything about portals. I can't see them. Really pushing second wave. Yeah, they've been pushing this, oh, it's going to come back. It could come back worse, blah, blah, blah. They've been pushing it kind of from the start. First, it was flatten the curve, and then it was just going to be a few weeks. And then, if we open, then you kind of forgot about flattening the curve. And now it was, you're killing your grandma, blah, blah, blah. Oh, we'll have to reopen it. We'll have to shut down again if we open too soon. So, like, they keep having these, like, mantras that they use. Jazz was not an anarchist utopia. Yeah, you're talking about that that independent zone. I just so distrustful of media now that I really don't know what happened there. I mean, I'm not really surprised that they would fail. I mean, if you're going to open like a commune type environment, you would have to pre-plan, know where your income sources are going to come from. You would have some money saved up. You would probably have people that knew and pre-organized how they were going to deal with certain problems. Or at least you would study that and come up with a plan. And you would have people who are reasonably adept at doing that in order to succeed. Like, for instance, the police get funding to do the policing. So now if you get rid of the police, but you're not getting any of your funding, then how are you going to eat? So I'm not surprised they failed. It was almost a foregone conclusion. I would have been a little surprised if they did well under that situation. And it's just random people that just happen to be there. Then you got to wonder if, say, the government wants you to fail, are they going to organize a couple shootings nearby? Then supposedly a lot of homeless people flooded in there and wanted free food. So they had probably a lot of, so, yeah, of course it's going to fail. I'm not even surprised. It doesn't mean that the concept, if done properly with proper preparation and blah, 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 could not work. But it's not an easy thing. I think more realistically, there have been a number of locations that have fired their whole police force and went to like sheriffs. And in order to get back in, they had to reapply. And then they didn't let anybody in with a bad record. And anybody that was known to. So basically, they got rid of half of their police force. That was the kind of violent half. And have improved their numbers a lot and changed their basic policies and stuff. That might be more realistic. It seems like it has worked in the few places that has done it. And see, it's very hard to get it done because you've got the police union is very powerful. And so you can't just fire half your force and rehire them. They had to fire the whole force and start a whole new force, thus throwing off the giant police union monkey off their back. It was a socialist communist experiment with a guerrilla gang to protect people. See, I don't know, how, okay, you've got a violent area. You're going to have some kind of enforcement. You have zero experience, You know, how many people would have died during that time frame? How many shootings would they have had? How many shootings do they have on a regular basis? Do they have one shooting a month, one shooting a week? It's a real bad neighborhood. How is the current shootings percentage comparing to the previous shooting percentage? I don't know, and they're not really talking about that. I didn't really expect them to like not have any crime ever in there. I mean, I really don't have any problem with people experimenting with different community styles as long as everybody in there is on board with it. I do think that that stuff we could learn from it, even if it fails. What works, what doesn't, I'm fine with it. But those things need planning and education and willing people. And so, you know, I have a friend that sees some E, but it scares her, so she tries to deny it. That's the normal thing for most people. I don't want to talk about it. Some people have gotten a little more curious, you know, after it kind of sunk in, but it's been very slow going. Yeah, the police went in today, I guess, and cleared that out. Terrorists, not protesters. I don't know. I think they're just artificial terminology. Terrorists are, I wouldn't call them that. I would just, protesters are going to be a variation of people. Some are going to be violent. Some are going to be really good. There's going to be a whole continuum. Lumping them all into a category that's meant for people who trying to blow up giant buildings is, I would not use that term. I think that's just political speak, personally. You're basically picking like the worst term you can think of and then labeling everybody in that group something. That's not how I roll. Even if I disagree with something, I'll try not to do that. Because that's too political. And, you know, the liberals do the same thing as the GOP. You know, let's call all the GOP Nazis. Obviously, they are only a tiny percentage are going to be anywhere close to that. I always wanted an extra tentacle. Hey, you know, the weird growths and stuff that we're starting to see on some of the, you know, images. In 10 years, there might be tentacles. Who knows? There's always been tentacles. They generalize and don't realize it, or rather, they don't see it. I don't think they want to. Many of the radical left don't have. No, it's the same. It's not just the radical left, the radical right are the exact same. They generalize and they don't realize it. They just generalize in different ways. You've just generalized by generalizing the whole radical left. You know, I see it on both sides. There's not much difference. You listen to the GOP stations, they spend all their time complaining about the liberals. They don't spend any of their time fixing their own crap. Liberals do the exact same thing, just division, division, division. I'm really just disgusted with both sides. I mean, the whole two-party paradigm, I'm just disgusted with it. I mean, they used to be more based on actual policy preferences. Like, Republicans used to be more like, don't overspend, you know, and more like a little bit more freedoms and less regulation. But now the Republicans get in there and they spend just as much, if not more, than the Democrats. So they're not following that anymore. The Democrats used to be more like for the people and more taxes and stuff. But they've just gotten, you know, just as greedy and power hungry and all this crap. There's no real difference. If you're a Republican, you call it a fee. And if you're a Democrat, you call it a tax. But either way, money is coming out of my pocket. Have you seen the new history about Alaska War and World War II? It's called Not the War That History Forgot. That's got... I wonder how many wars I'm going to get when I type this in, if I don't type in Alaska. That's got Mandela, like, written all over it. All right. It's not the Korean War. No, I didn't forget the Korean War. All right. So the Korean War is the official war that history forgot. From a pig that may have started a war to a group of fearless children who ignited the civil rights movement. War history forgot programs. All right, I'm going to stick up Alaska. Alaska. It's the only land battle of World War II in North America, an invasion by enemy soldiers that captured entire Alaska islands. Yeah, no. I think we've covered that a little bit. Those are those islands that stick way off Alaska that have been like growing in, and they're like really close to Russia, so it's not surprising that those suckers got invaded in this timeline. But yeah, no. Nobleness D was presenting this war on Scarab Channel. There are even black and white real movies about how Japanese took the two islands for a year. Yeah, this one, I think we discussed it even like a year ago, that there was incursions on in Canada and stuff. Can you imagine you have two items to choose from in a restaurant, yet that's politics? Yeah, but you don't have to choose either. There's two. You can just say no. Or both, or, you know, I think they take turns telling the truth and lying. So you pick one side, and sometimes it'll be the right side, but at other times, the other side is telling the truth. Neither side tells the truth, and they're playing you. They're bouncing people back and forth like ping pongs. First, the liberals complain about the GOP no lockdown protests, and then the liberals turn around and have giant BLM protests, and now the GOP is complaining about it. So when the GOP was complaining and doing their protests, you know, that's our right. But when the liberals did it, it's not your right. Now they're just taking turns, and it's so hypocritical because both sides have had protests, yet both sides act like the other side shouldn't be allowed. Don't forget the new history. Oh, the history's so, you know, I'm starting to feel a pattern now in some of this stuff. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. I got a lot to talk about today. Pendulum politics. It's just gotten so much worse because they're not even doing what they say their side is for. You know, the Republicans are supposed to be for freedom and constitutional rights. But the minute the liberals want to have freedom and constitutional rights, they don't know. Now it's irresponsible. And, you know, and the liberals are supposed to be for charity and helping people. But a minute it's a redneck that needs help. Oh, no. It's just, it's so hypocritical. Both sides are so hypocritical now. And, you know, they have these standards that they totally throw out the window for their own side. You know, that guy does it, it's horrible, but if my guy does it, well, a year length was 364 and 365 leap year. I'm just not sure on that one. I really am not, because I really was vague on it until a couple years ago. It's been 365 days a year for a few years at least, but I really can't say for sure how long that's been true. Basically, in timeline, the Mongols invaded South America 200 years before its discovery. Would not surprise me. I do think the Muslims have really gotten around a lot more in this timeline. There's a whole bunch of them over there in China. If you look at like Saudi Arabia and stuff, it's freaking huge. Kazakhstan is way bigger. They did not have Muslims in freaking China before. It was the Mongolians. And Russia's got a bunch of Muslims. No, they weren't over there. It was Russians. I can't read or watch anything about history or inventions or science because they're changing. Yeah, I mean, I have to be in a certain mood because sometimes I'm just not in the mood to look at any Mandelas. It wasn't a bad idea. They're talking about Chaz. They were trying to help the feed. You know, I don't know what went on in there. I don't. And it might be different in every timeline. And we might hear this story, and then 2 weeks later we hear a whole nother story, and then 3 weeks later we hold flap back to the next one. And that's part of what it does. First, this poor guy was attacked and he was all innocent. Then a week later you hear that actually he was there to rob the place. And now, oh, he's not that much of a victim. And then 3 weeks later, you hear, oh, it turns out that they falsely accused him of robbing the place, but there was never evidence for it. Then the fourth, it's going to flip-flop back and forth like that. And the politics evidence does that too. I've seen so many flip-flops in congressional investigations. First, there's no evidence for something, then there's a ton of evidence for something, then all that evidence is overturned. It's everything is like whiplash now. I mean, how many times are you going to get whiplashed back and forth before you start to realize that something is fishy? Here, the Mongols left because the Vagos took territory. Huh, I don't even know about the Vagos. I can't keep up with anything. It just, I mean, it took me decades to learn the old timeline. And now it's like, it's in there. After sometimes you're just like, oh my God, I've never heard of any of these words before. Seeing some of the conservatives that used to once make sense, spewing talking points. And, it's weird too because, they've all become such stereotypes. They used to seem more like people, but now they just, I don't know. Australia was called New Holland. Really? Australia was called New Holland? Australia was called New Holland. And newly found cotton became known as New Holland. But see, Holland was never known as Holland, so why would there be a New Holland? Why isn't it what is it? It's the Netherlands. So why isn't it the New Netherlands instead of the New Holland? Because Holland wasn't Holland anymore. In my old timeline, Holland was freaking Holland. I mean, Netherlands was Holland. Now it's just a little segment inside the Netherlands. It should have been the New Netherlands. Whatever happened to radio types? I don't know what radio types is. More puppets, less standards. I don't know. I mean, is it even real people? Are they just, were they always just fake puppets and now it's just more obvious? Or were those people taken and now we're just seeing some kind of computer simulation, ridiculous stereotype, crap copy? I don't even know what's going on. I just know it's looking more and more ridiculous. Should be Old Holland. Yeah, well, even if it's older, when you just discover it, for you, it's new. So, New Holland. For me, the Netherlands was always called Holland, too. Yeah, so it shouldn't be the New Netherlands. Australia was south, Tasman, couldn't find it. Yeah, exactly. It was way the heck out there. But for me, the prisoners were just dumped on Australia and they made their own. I always was impressed because they made their own government. But in this timeline, the UK always had control of Australia, and a lot of the Australians are not descended from prisoners. Huge new buildings just appear and pop up overnight with no construction crews. I know! The one that popped up on the hill, not only did it kind of grow up like a freaking seed or something, but it also moved around on the hill. It was over here, now it was over there. Oh my God, it's totally ridiculous. Australia was a prisoner country. Yeah, now it's only partially a prisoner country, and the majority of people in Australia were not from prisoner stock. They used it as sections of Australia as a prisoner area, but not the whole thing. That's last I checked, and I'm pretty sure that's still true. In fact, that was like some big complaint. Oh, Australians don't like it when you assume that we're all from prisoner stock. Whatever. $2. Thank you. Appreciate it. Pugsley Lovejoy. We love you, Eva. I had a Dublin donut pop up one day and then an auto shop for boats and cars. Oh, you got stores. I'm just getting like condos, and we got this giant brick building that was already, it showed up already abandoned and boarded up. It was weird. Australia would move more north. Yep. Dublin donut. You still have the old spelling, D-O-N-U-T, because like about 6 or 7 years ago, I started seeing the D-O-U-G-H-N-U-T. And the first time I saw it, I just thought somebody was making a joke, like a pun on the word. But no, that's a spelling now. The whole Australia was a big prison. Yeah, originally, but not in this timeline. Need inputs in? Hello, how are you doing? Oh, I don't think I mentioned, for yous that saw the conference, need input, remind me. Yeah, there's some things in the conference that I think went badly. Apparently they had somebody on there that was some kind of doctor saying weird stuff, and that has been removed. And then they had somebody sneak into one of the live streams and with like a pig mask, and nobody knew who that was. And for a while, some people were saying that our own conference, and when I say our, I'm not like, I don't know everything that's going on in there, so I couldn't even be sure myself because I'm just doing my part. But some people were saying that we did it to ourselves, and that would have actually been genius to get attention. But the people I met didn't seem like that sneaky. It actually would have been genius to pull the prank on herself, but it actually came up that it was Mandela Affected channel that did it. Let me see if I can find his YouTube channel. Actually, and he had the exact same background and the whole mask and everything. And I'm so glad he admitted it, because it would have bugged me just a little bit for like eons. If I just wondering who the freak it was. I might have even thought Need Input did it, but the shoulders weren't right and stuff. So I'm like, nope, you couldn't have done it. Looking back, it was actually kind of obvious who did it, because Mandela Affected loves that stuff. He's got wigs and they do masks, and but he's been sort of out of the picture for eons, like for a year. So that's why I didn't really think of him, because he just didn't seem like he was really paying attention. Somewhere in here in my million signups is where did he go? Yeah, it's Scott Harrison's actually the one that broke the story, because Mandela Affected isn't really putting stuff up on public YouTube anymore. I don't think he really trusts them. Not that anybody really does, but there, Scott Harrison. So that's the magic pig break-in person, was pig hacker revealed. Dum dum dum. It was Mandela Affected. And
Yeah,
when I looked at
multiverse.
this, I wasn't actually watching that show when it happened, but the person that busted in had this really weird background, like surfaces, and I was like, what the heck is that, And so he had those exact background surfaces so you could see. So anyway, yeah, it was Mandela Affected. So yeah, good on them. I think he got a little lucky, because they had gotten really sloppy about the security. Normally when you do a Zoom, you're supposed to make all the people wait outside the main Zoom room and then invite them in one at a time if you know that they're supposed to be in there. And you use a password. So now somebody could randomly hack the Zoom room just by using the number, and maybe they even got the password, but if nobody told them the password, that's going to be a lot harder to hack. And then if they have to be invited in, it's going to be really hard to hack that. But since their fur was flying and they had just like eliminated all that security, so basically when he hacked in, he was like in. So I did notice that morning when I did my Q&A, there was no password and there was no any security. And then that happened, and then my later at that night Q&A for the whole day, suddenly they sent a password, and I was trying to get in. I'm like, why? Well, it's asking for a password, and I had to go back to my email and get it. So they did institute some new rules. So anyway, it actually is kind of funny. I kind of feel bad that it happened maybe on his, because that guy, I don't think he's ever spoke at any conference. You know, he's kind of a stream of thought person. If you knew him, like I met him at the conference last year, that's how he is all the time. I mean, I kind of figured his speech would be like this, because he's always like that. That's just him. So I was not at all shocked. So I kind of felt bad it was him. If you knew him, you know, he seems like a kind of a sweet guy, and he's just kind of strange. But it would have been better if it like happened to me or somebody else who could just think it was really funny. And maybe he did, but it seemed like he was a little thrown by it. You know, I've been on YouTube for like over a year, and I'm kind of used to like dealing with stuff. And a lot of the people that wanted to be on the conference were just people who don't have any experience. You know, they just asked. And that, you know, that's why part of it came out that way. You've got people who don't, you know what they're doing, you know. I think they should have vetted it better. I really do think that, you know, nobody, it's funny because the conference got accused of blocking out like flat earthers. They didn't block out anything. That even stuff they should have blocked out, they didn't block out. But there's not that many flat earthers that I know that are on YouTube, actually. It's basically anybody who wanted to speak said, okay, yeah, you could speak. But I really do think if it was me running it, I would have been like, well, what are you going to speak about? You know, just so we and I would have looked at them, you know, I would have like inspected them, and I would have demanded that they be turned in earlier so I could make sure there wasn't anything I really had an issue with. But Scott Harrison, masks now seem normal. Yeah. You know, that I totally see why masks piss people off, and it's like a muzzle. But on the flip side, for most people, it's not that bad to have to wear a mask for short periods. I do feel really sorry for people out in the public who have to do it all the time, though. And I feel really sorry for people who have airway problems, because it's very hard on them. I'm fascinated by all the buildings created in the 1850s with small populations. Glowings me. Somebody has been watching, I don't know if you watch UApp, but he covers that a lot. And I've actually gone down that rabbit hole this week, and I'm just going to lightly touch on it. This seems to be the latest iteration of the mud flood thing. And I'm wondering if this is going to be like, you know, one of the nicer timelines with this reality. This is not my old history. We've seen a lot of upgrades to some of the old buildings. I think there's a lot more of them. Like the Palace of the Fine Arts has been covered a number of times, and I am quite familiar with it. It's a San Francisco building, like construction that was supposed to have been built for the World Fair. I used to visit there all the time when I was a kid. That was like my favorite field trip, and I'm quite familiar with it. It is a lot bigger, nicer, more sophisticated, and there's some colors, and the whole thing is just way different. I mean, it's the same, but yet so much more. And the old Palace of the Fine Arts in my old timeline fit with the old history that we were told. Now, the new upgraded version of the Palace of the Fine Arts, which it supposedly always was like that, according to the old photos, fits more with this strange, creepy mud flood, maybe there's 1,000 years history missing timeline. So first you see the ME, and then you see this new theory. So, I mean, you know, maybe that's going to be our new history. Did it ever happen that way? Is there really a past like that? Or is it just, you know, I don't know. $5 by somebody. Woohoo! Where'd it go? Futuristic. Thank you. Appreciate it. Sean Dean wasn't affected on a Mandela conference. Yeah, I think that's another issue, is that I would have preferred to see more Mandela related stuff. But like I said, anybody who wanted to speak was allowed to speak. Many flat earthers have been censored. To my knowledge, no flat earthers asked to speak. I did talk a little bit about flat earth. I'm not a flat earther, but I'm not an anti-flat earther. I'm not a glober. I'm not anything anymore. So I don't really fit as a flat earther, but I'm not, you know, but I do stick up for a lot of flat earther stuff. I think it's interesting. I've had over a year. And when did I start? I've been Mandela knowledgeable for 4 years, but I was not on YouTube that whole time. When I first found out about it, I went on Reddit, and I joined Reddit, and I got heavily involved, and I became a co-moderator on one of the subreddits. And then later, I learned how to do the YouTube thing, because I didn't know anything about YouTube. I had to buy all that stuff. I had to learn the software, which I barely know. Zoom is notoriously easy to bomb if security is not in place. Yeah, that's what I've heard. I'm not sure how hard it would be to figure out what channel we were on, but Brian Stavely, you know, he never asked to be on. They basically put out a thing. Anybody wants to speak, go ahead and speak. But very few people knew about the conference. Like they did one last year, and not many people paid attention to it. So I don't think they even knew about it. So then when it hits now, a lot of people are like, well, how come I'm not on it? Like, you didn't ask. You know, like I said, they weren't picky. I mean, maybe if hundreds of people asked, they would have gotten picky. But no, you know, not that many people asked. I mean, they only knew about me because I went last year. I don't think they even knew me. So, like, that guy that went on after me, he was there last year, and then, you know, he's, oh, can I speak too? Yeah, okay. That's why he was on, because he asked. To my knowledge, they didn't turn down anybody. And you wouldn't really have to, because they're turning in the speech in advance, so if you didn't like it, you could just say something. Apparently, they didn't, like, actually vet any of them, but a little training session would definitely have helped. They did. You got to realize they've never done this before, and it was supposed to be actually an in-person event. So a lot of people thought they were just going to stand up there with a microphone and talk. They didn't know they were going to have to do a video. Not that that would mean that it would have turned out way better, but, you know, I don't, like the guy who came after me, that's how his brain is. I don't think you could do anything about him. That's just how he is. We've had, you know, there was a lot of new agey people at the conference. It's just how it was. It was kind of fun in person because I really didn't care if there was a 2 hours, like a 45-minute speech that wasn't really on topic, because then I would have hours of talking to anybody I wanted in there about anything, including Mandela's. So it was just different than when it was live. NASA is definitely full of S. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of evidence in this timeline of shenanigans. I don't know, you know, maybe the new timeline will be flat. I think that the evidence was good for a globe Earth in the old timelines, but a lot of that evidence is gone now. So, you know, I don't know. It is whatever it is. I'll just... Dark Wolf was part in charge. You know, he didn't do, to my knowledge, he wasn't in charge of editing the videos and stuff. So I don't know if he actually was able to see all of them. I mean, in the end, he helps a lot, but there's a lot of people involved. Where's my water? Oh, it's way over there. I always have two. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what they do next time. The thing is, I think they want to do an in-person one again, like normal. So, but I just, the way they're doing with the sea, I don't know if next year they'll be done with it. I mean, we might be into like, it's kind of the end parts of some problems by the end of next year. I think it might drag on for another year or two. I'm hoping that we can blast through it quickly, but I think we're going to see some bunch of more stupid before we get through this whole C thing. In person would be cool. Yeah, see, when I went last year, I actually didn't expect it to be that organized. I'm like, oh, wow, they're going to have speakers. Who knows if they'll even, I didn't really expect them to be really good speakers. I just wanted to meet all the other Mandela people and talk. That was my main thing, was to just have conversations. And I got that. And the speeches were better than I thought, I mean, this is not, I've been to a lot of conferences, and usually conferences are done by people who have done, dozens of other conferences, and they pay people to fly in, and they're professional speakers their other speeches are known at other conferences, and, it's a whole different thing. And of course, the quality is going to be a lot higher when you do that. And they're like kind of respected in their field, but there's a lot more money. And then you have to pay a couple $100s to go to this conference, and they've got 500 people going to that conference, not 30. So okay, so let's get to the story. So yeah, I'm really glad that Mandela effect admitted though, because it was bugging me. I figured it might have been one of us, because whoever busted in with the pig face did not speak. And I thought that was really strange, because if you were just a random person that nobody knew, you'd probably open your mouth and say something. You can't compare last year's conference with this year. It was much better last year. I don't know. I didn't watch, to be honest, I didn't watch the whole conference this year. All right. Because I'm so busy. And I've got as you can see, I've got 80 channels that I try to. Okay. So this one is not Mandela either. It is just something really weird that I've just noticed. In about 6 months ago, I kind of noticed that when I go to sleep, or when I'm waking up, usually when I'm waking up, I can kind of hear it's like I go through a phase of sleep where I can hear people talking. And usually it's just not really related to me, they're just yapping. It's like there's channels and I can kind of hear it, and then I pass through it. So supposedly hypnagogic and hypnopompic auditory hallucinations are considered fairly common. This thing is supposed to be fairly common. But what I noticed a couple months ago is they got louder. I could just hear them better. It was weird. I woke up and I was like, oh, that was so loud. I'm glad I'm awake. So it was like a racket or something. Just it was just kind of irritating. It's sort of like tinnitus, it's sort of like if it stops for a minute, you're like, I didn't realize how irritating that racket was until it quit. It was sort of like that. So that has been getting stronger. And this morning when I woke up, it was like people were yelling. There was this huge argument, and there was a lot of them. And I don't know if that has to do with what's going on in the timeline. They're not even yelling at me. It's just there's just you're in a crowded place and you hear all this freaking racket. And it's just been, I don't know if anybody else has experienced anything like that, but I just noticed that this morning it was everybody was arguing and yelling, and usually it's just more like chatter. So when I woke up, I was like, damn, that was really a loud racket. I don't know, it's just weird. Veil is getting thinner. Yeah, I think it might be something like that. And I don't know, maybe that's just my talent, that I have certain specific skill sets that will develop in me, and other people will have whole different ones. I've had that for years, many, many, many times. Even awake, I hear my name. I've had that a few times, but usually it is more just other people yapping about whatever. Sometimes I see visions of just places, and it's totally random movie set images. I have no, I don't recognize them. They mean nothing. They don't seem to have anything to do with me. Sometimes I swear they may not be on Earth or some history that looks really strange. Other times, a lot of times, it just looks like boring Earth scenes. I mean, so a lot of them are pretty, but and they're like this quality that is superior than even my normal eyes are able to. It's like it's superior to 20/20 vision. So they're weird that way. So you can see every little tiny bitty detail. But I'm like, is that ever going to be of any use whatsoever to my life? I have no idea. So far, it hasn't been. Other than to say it's kind of noisy. It would be amazing if we suddenly left the simulation and found ourselves back in the old world with no Mandela effects. I don't know on that. I think in a lot of ways I've improved a lot from that timeline. I think I understand things a lot better. I can see things a lot more clearly. In many ways, my body is a lot stronger here. People that were my age were not as healthy in that timeline as here. So I'm not sure if that would actually be good. I mean, it certainly would be nice to see my old map just for familiarity's sakes. And have people agree with me about Arctica and like that. But I'm just not sure if the other, if it would actually be a good idea to do that. I wish I could visit, that's for sure. But, maybe I'm dead in that timeline. I don't know. There's issues. And the fact that we could only go bit by bit, it seems, I don't think you could just go all the way back. I think you'd have to go back bit by bit. I have random smells come over me lately, a lot more floral smells. I have had that. Certain weeks, everything smells like good. And I've also had weeks when stuff smelled stinky. So I don't know. I was home alone the other day and I kept hearing random talking, no TV on. I'm noticing like the online stuff, there's more and more talk about auditory hallucination is not that uncommon and you don't have to be that crazy. Such and such percentage, 1 out of 10 people hear voices that others can't hear. It was 1 out of 10. It was the latest stats. So it seems like this stuff is coming into the timeline, and there's kind of a lot of articles where like, don't freak out. It's not really all that strange, and you're not crazy. So I think we're probably going to see more of that. Somebody was talking earlier about, is there going to be more paranormal? I think that's coming in. I've always wondered if it's the thought patterns of those near us that we are sharing. Yeah, I don't know. I spend a lot of time at work alone or just driving around, and I don't really, like I'm just in the car. So I don't know how much that could be. I mean, I don't want to say I know, but it's not like I'm right next to somebody or anything. So it's just the Arctic. Why do people call it the Arctica? Because for some of us, there was a continent there that was sort of like the bookend to Antarctica. And it was called Arctica. And it had high cliffs of ice and land under it. And the reason Antarctica was called Antarctica because it was opposite of Arctica. Arctica was on the top, and opposite Arctica was on the bottom. That's why we call it Arctica, because it was Arctica for us. Not for everybody, but it was for us. I look at a black and white picture and I see another picture. I see shadows. See, I'm more of an auditory person. So although I am noticing pattern more in the visual than I used to, I was always sucky at that. But when it comes to auditory, that's kind of my game. So I'm not surprised that stuff is kind of coming in for me that way. If it smells stanky, it's either Bigfoot, Mothman, Hatman, Deimos, or the Jinn, or the creatures. I don't know. You know, it doesn't really feel like there's anything there. I sometimes wonder if it's like kind of a symptom of where the timeline is heading, or like something happened in a nearby timeline that bleeds over. Is I don't really feel like a specific individual presence. It just seems more like indicative of maybe a bleed over or something. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know. Arctica definitely was there. For some of us, yes. I used to live in a haunted apartment. I could smell perfume, noise. Yeah, I've lived in a place that was some weird stuff happened. Although I didn't get a lot of smell, but there was noise and there was some weird flashing lights. The chattering happens in my brain audio, but not actual heard through my ears. It's a subtle difference, and sometimes I got fooled. Was it actually through my ears or in here? It can be very close. Usually, at least in retrospect, I can look back and realize that, no, wait, the sound was just not quite right for the real world. And when I'm waking up, I know, because I'm in, I don't know, I know that it's not waking world stuff, like 99% of the time. Was told most people who are ME are empathic, which could explain absorbing other people's energies. Quite possibly. I think if you're inward directed, you just spend a lot more thinking about this. People who are more outward directed are just busy with, doing things, and they're just not, it's just not their interest. Leah Broadweather remembers Arctica. Julia Spooney remembers Arctica. If you hear chattering or diesel droning, you might want to look into targeted individuals and gang stalking. I don't have any problem with gang stalking because sometimes it really pays to be a little bit of a bitch. Pardon my terminology. And if people try to be pushy with me, I'm just like, tell it to the hand. And people can talk to me rudely, and I don't care. And I hear that chatter, and they're really not pointing it at me. And if they're arguing with themselves, it's not my problem. So no, I'm not the right personality for gang stalking, because I got into the paranormal with out of body travel. And when you're like, whatever you want to say, it's real or it's not real. One thing that really happens when you do that OBE out of body travel thing is you got to deal with your dark side. You experience negative energies, and you just have to learn how to be like, no. And there's different people do it different ways. I mean, some people, exude love. Negative energies hate love. So if you exude love and kindness and charity, they'll just run for the hills. It disgusts them. They don't like that. You can, trust in God. That confidence is definitely enough. But you can just say, like, excuse me, I'm busy. I'm not listening to your crap. That works fine too, and that is my usual route. And so that's what I do if somebody's rude to me, gang stalking, whatever. They're trying to be negative and catch your attention. And if you respond with fear, anger, or any of the negative emotions, then their clutch gets stronger. And that includes fear, very much. And so what I would say is they're basically using your own negative energies against you. That's their only power, is to appeal to those. And so when you learn how to wall those off and not respond, they have no power. So yeah, if they feel any weakness in you, yeah, they'll target you, because that's how they are. But in the end, you still have the power. You have to find it in yourself. And that's why, no, there will be no gang stalking, because I refuse. I will not tolerate it. Anyone who needs to cleanse the evil spirits. See, I do believe that if they believe in you, it will work. But it is their belief, and you're helping them believe, and you're helping them feel the power. 2 hour mark. Yeah, I just never stop talking, do I? Once had an OBE and it was awesome. They are cool. And just lucid dreaming is really fun too. To be strict and confident and nothing can happen. You know, there's times I slip up and I get a little scared and I, run back to my body or whatever. And then I just, okay, next time I'll do better. I mean, I'm not 100%, but generally speaking, that is the solution. I know the slip ups and, I can feel them trying to get me sometimes. And sometimes I slip a little and then I'm like, wait, don't go that route. It's like the minute you get angry, like they try to be rude to you. And the minute you get angry, like that jerk. And then the minute you do that, you can feel them get powerful, like more powerful, like they're feeding on it. The minute you go, I don't care, I'm busy, then they lose their grip. Strangest experience of this day was the portal area that opened up in a doorway. Huh. Interesting. See, now, if you ever read like Journeys Out of Body and any of that stuff, he would, when he saw into other realms, he would see it as a portal. But he didn't really think there was actually a portal. It was like his mind's way of trying to describe the difference between there and here. So that's why I'm just not sure if that's really like a special portal or just you seeing, into another place. Like a lot of times when I'm dreaming, I see stuff as a computer screen and I can scroll it and I'll be like learning this stuff. And I never saw it that way before computers. I would see it in different ways. But now, like I used to see it more like a TV, right? Whatever you're used to. And now I'll actually like scroll the information in my head. And I think it's just because that's the input method I've gotten really familiar with. So I went to live chat to top chat somehow. Don't ask me too many questions about YouTube because I barely understand it. My mom described my psychic ability as more of a mind reader. I'm a little bit more like that. They tried wiping ancient Sumerian evidence that proves portals have existed. Or ancient Sumerian evidence did not exist in the old timeline and it is in this timeline, because that's what I really feel like is happening. People are going to blame that and being hidden, but I think it's just in this timeline and not there. I have lots of music in my dreams. I sometimes have it, and even some of it's original. I also get these narrators. They have the beautifulest voices you've ever heard, like telling these stories. Like they're like the best, most amazing narrator voice on earth kind of voice. I've heard other people's thoughts out loud when their lips didn't move. I've had that happen a few times, and it is a trippy. And when that happens, I do have a little bit of difficulty determining whether they said it out loud or not sometimes. It's not very often, though. But, I don't hang out with people. When I hang out with people more, it happens more. I haven't been. Okay, so there's all that. All right, I did the beetle wings. All right, this one is from Jamie Stilger. Mentioned this one. She mentioned ovarian ligament. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with. Every time I look at it, it looks a little different. It's like basically the female reproductive system. I'm seeing more images that look like this now, which kind of freaks me out because it looks like an evil pig monster or something with creepy eyes. Okay. She was talking about this ovarian ligament, which is this. And like how this ovary got connected keeps kind of switching around. And for a while there was a thing here, and then now there's this has gotten, this used to be a lot more floppy in most images and further from the ovaries. The ovaries look a lot bigger now in the images, but really tripped me out was this flappy thing, which is called broad ligament is in a lot of the images. And I was looking at this maybe 6 months ago, this whole uterus ovary thing, and this flappy thing was not on any of them. So now there's this broad ligament that's, like, to me, totally different. This area looks like a lot bigger. So when she said ovarian ligament, I'm like, you know, that one switches around, but what is that broad ligament? Strangely, it was misspelled in the first one I read, and it was called bread ligament. I'm like, bread ligament? All right, so there's this broad ligament. See, it's in so many of the images now. Then this was just not. And look at how close. They used to just show this tube like really far from the ovaries, and now it's like sucked on there. There's that broad ligament. broad in almost every image. And all I guess because the word ligament is on there, but still, I mean, I just never saw that before. So yeah, I was kind of tripping out. Never saw it. So I call fishy business on that one. What is this? You know, that I guess is it also. It just looks, it's morphing. It looks different now. Okay. Next one. This one's from Jay Emblin, regular commenter on the channel. We got 2 spiders for you. This time is the second spider. This is not the one from this thumbnail. So these are supposed to be common spiders. I have not seen these, but they're supposed to be all over the place, North America. And this is the trippy part. Not only do they have these cool back colorations, but they make this weird pattern in the middle of the web, and I have never seen this before. So they have the normal web, and then they have this like weird scribbly patterns or something. I mean, look at that. That is totally, I've never seen that before. Ever. So they're saying nobody knows the reason for that, but maybe it's to hide the spider. There seems to be quite a lot of patterns of these things. So cool. And they're pretty big. Some bigger than spiders. So another thing is supposedly they have, they can bite you and they have venom, and it'll be like a bee sting. Now in my old timeline, you really couldn't get much of a bite out of most spiders, but these guys are very common and they can bee sting you. So I'm going to look them up and check their wiki. The official wiki version of reality, so that we can see, let's see, it was Argiope spiders. Oh, there's a bunch of them. Black and yellow garden spider. I think that's what we're mostly talking about. Common to the contiguous United States, Hawaii, southern Canada, Mexico, and Central America. So it's like a common garden spider. I don't know, have you ever seen any of those weird webs before? Because I got a lot of spiders around here, but I have not seen that anywhere. Okay, so let me see what you guys are up to over here. Garden spiders. The web pattern looks new. Yeah. Yeah, stitches. It does look like stitches, doesn't it? I have never seen that, and it's supposed to be really common. Dreams are more real than reality. It may well be true. I mean, that might be the real reality, is dreams. Have you ever noticed, like, in a dream, you understand all this stuff. Like, it makes sense. And it seems profound and important, and you get it. Then when you wake up, it's like 95% of it is gone. Like, you can't understand it anymore. Like, we just so diminish that dream world. You just can't bring that much back. You know, you're trying to explain your dream, and it seems so important, but when you say it out loud, it just sounds like stupid, because you can't, there's no words for it. I watch Meek's videos and her fear and crying makes it hard to watch. Yeah, you know, I don't know what to say to help. You know, I just, my personality. I don't know. Maybe it's just because, um, well, I don't want to say that because no, that, I want to say I had kind of a hard life and I got used to it, but there's been a lot of people who have a hard life that like didn't. It just, a lot of the things I'm dealing with now are hard, but they're not as hard as like my childhood, you know? So I think that's helped me a lot with just like, well, this isn't that bad. It's made me much more adaptable. So some people might be experiencing these kind of dangers for the first time and they didn't grow up with it. Uh, and I, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'd be scared to death too if I hadn't. I really don't know. It's like I got the early training or something. I do think that anytime you have a negative emotion, it opens you up like a weakness. Like it gives the bad energies a grasping point. That is what I've really experienced. That the minute I slip up and fall in that direction, it's like they get stronger and, you know, louder and more in your ear. And you just have to be like, no, I'm not listening. And I think that that's what we have to do in the current, that is the best thing to do in the current wake reality too. Just, you know, hating that other side, um, denigrating other people. You know, I still have to work on it. I'm not saying I'm all perfect, but it seems like the more you do that, the more you concentrate on the negative, the more you get sucked in that direction. A year ago, I was so afraid and pushed so much energy away. Now I'm overcoming that more and more, and it's amazing to see how that changes everything. Yeah, that's exactly it. And you know, you got to work through it, and people aren't going to just magically be able to toughen up. You know, it's little steps, and I've definitely spent a lot of my life taking those little steps. So you know, I don't want to say it is hard seeing somebody suffering and not really being able to help them, and you know that they are in a place where they can't really see the way out. So you have to try to like let them take like one step at a time, and it's hard. And sometimes it's just too much, you know, even to, you don't want to get sucked too much in that direction. So sometimes you just have to limit your access a little bit, you know. Dreams have taken on a more cinematic quality. It just seems like they're easier to remember. Um, the space between my conscious self and my dream self seems narrower now. Like lucid dreaming seems easier. I'm able to have more of my waking conscious, and I actually think my waking conscious may actually be getting shoved more towards my dream consciousness. Um, like I don't know, waking reality seems more surreal now, so that's my guess. My ex and I have mind read way too many times. I think it happens when we are around each other's space a lot. That's what I've found, that I spend a lot of time with somebody. Not everybody, but most people. There are a few people that just, it doesn't happen. Those people are really interesting. They're not the norm. But most people, yeah. Ovaries have gone through some wild changes. Yeah, you know, and see, we can grow new eggs now. Like it used to be you were born with every egg you'll ever have, but now we grow more, and we actually grow a bunch and then only release a few. And there's a whole, last time I looked, it was all weird. Looks like the Star Wars Cantina singer. Yeah, it's weird looking. This is the new drinking game. Every time I say weird, you have to take a drink. I've had a recurring dream for 40 years. It's in black and white, and everyone is naked and skinny and packed into a concrete box, and then the pipes at the top, the chamber start pumping gas. Yeah, I wonder if that's how you, like, maybe died in another timeline or something. I've definitely had some dreams of different deaths. Like I was a soldier and I got shot in the back. That was one. And then like it was so realistic, I felt all those emotions, and I had like certain knowledge about strategies. Yeah, you can grow eggs after let's see. I'll go with the old version. Are you born with all your eggs? Ooh, it looks like I've clicked on this one before. Where's the story? Conventional science has taught women for years that they are born with all the eggs they will ever have. The theory has been that women are born with 1 to 2 million immature eggs at birth, and they will slowly begin losing them over the course of their lives. I don't remember it being 1 to 2 million, because you'd only drop like one a month. You didn't need millions. Many of those eggs will be lost before puberty. No, see, it was one per month. You wouldn't lose them before puberty. Eventually, you'd run out of eggs in your basket, and then you would be, menopause. Leaving women with around 300,000 eggs at the time of puberty. No. It is estimated that women may lose as many as 1,000 eggs per month over her fertile years. No. That was not my old reality. Of the roughly 400 follicles that will reach ovulation over the course of a woman's fertility. See, I don't even know this whole follicle thing. You just drop an egg. There wasn't like a follicle thing. A woman can expect 20 follicles to mature each month, with just one egg being released. So apparently those other eggs like lose the war and like bite it again. So you get 20 follicles a month. That that was never in my timeline. Science goes on to tell us that only the best quality eggs will be released, and that over time the overall quality of these eggs begins to diminish as menopause approaches. This is commonly believed to be the reason why women of an advanced maternal age have difficulty achieving pregnancy. So you don't run out of eggs, you just don't grow them as good anymore in this timeline. So first of all, the old storyline of having those kajillion eggs, we just had enough for like, you just needed like 12 a year for 30 years. So 1,200. So you just needed like 5,000 eggs. That was it. But now there's like millions and all this. All right. New studies beginning to suggest, so their old timeline is that was not my old timeline, but now the new timeline suggests that women may in fact be able to produce new eggs in her lifetime. The theory is based around the existence of stem cells found within the ovaries. The theory stems from finding back in 2004 when researchers found germ cells called oogonial stem cells. Then later in 2012, a favorite year among many, a study conducted by scientists found stem cells inside of human female ovaries. These cells are capable of dividing and generating new oocytes, which become new eggs. Advanced medical tools allow science to see how many times a cell has divided over its lifetime, and if conventional science stands true, all human eggs would have the same number of divisions, as all eggs should be present at birth. However, scientists have found that some of the cells have many more divisions, which suggests that new eggs were forming over the woman's lifetimes. So, when was this article even done? But, all these jillion eggs, it was just one egg per month for me. You didn't have like 20 of them and then 19 died and all this yammer. All right, so I saw this like last year. Yeah, women would freeze their eggs because they were running out. So, yeah. So, decades of science and research and just found out it's different. Yeah, I know. It doesn't. I guess people still freeze the eggs, but now it's because your quality of eggs drops as you get old. So, This also, like in the Bible, there's people like women who later become fertile again. There's really nothing stopping you. I think we'll get parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis is the current term. Women are easily having children at older ages. Yes, I've covered that before. And women are living longer. No wonder so many twins. Yes, because there's all these eggs. It used to be that one side would drop an egg, and then the next month the other side would drop an egg, and then there would just be every now and then both sides would drop an egg, and then you get twins. And then if those eggs split weirdly, you could get more than two, but it was super rare. So when all these twins were popping out, they were blaming it on in vitro fertilization, but it does seem that there's a strange extra bunch of them. Yeah, it's been a long time since I covered that. That's an older ME. It looks like the story has advanced a little since last I looked at it. But yeah, people in general are definitely living longer. I feel pretty good for my age as far as strength-wise. I don't notice a huge loss in strength. I think, since I was like 18, so that's interesting. Okay, so something that happened yesterday, it might have been this morning. I think it was last night. I did notice a face change, so I'm going to go over here where I can make my face bigger so you can see it. Okay, so I'm going to expand out my face a little bit. There. Okay, so what I noticed, I was looking in the mirror. I guess it's this side, but I thought my face was swelling, actually, because it's like here, right along here, is pinched in, and this sticks out more. And so I thought I had like a jaw swelling, but then I poked it, and it's not sore or anything. It's just sticking out more. And I realized it was symmetrical, but I tend to turn my head a little bit. So something has changed in here enough that I thought that I had like something wrong with my face. This part is sticking out more. I think this part has pinched in more, and then out here shows more. I'm not 100% sure, but it was trippy. So I'm like, I was feeling around for a jaw infection. I'm like, no, and then I'm like, no, it's on this side too. Oh yeah. Anyway, so a little shifty. I think with, probably the last few days that shifted. And the beetle wing shifted the last few days. So there's been some shifties. All right. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit. I've covered Palace of Fine Arts before. So first, it kind of started with the mud floods. And when was that? Like a year or two ago? Suddenly it was everywhere. It was like a whole new thing for me. Now it seems there's people talking about the mud floods going back quite a number of years in the current timeline. I haven't really researched it, but there's people saying that they've been studying it for a while. So I wonder if it's going backward in time. So here's the Palace of the Fine Arts. I've covered this before. It looks even a little more ornate. It's in San Francisco. It's just really pretty. And it was supposed to be left over from the World's Fair, and it was supposed to be temporary. First of all, it never had these red pillars, and now even on the old photos, there are these red pillars. I used to go here 10 times a year or something. It looks like there's just a lot more. It used to be like this and just a couple of spots, but now it looks like these columns go all around. One of these days I'm going to have to go back there and look at it in person. I'm going to have to maybe steel myself a little bit. See, all this, there was just a little bit of this before. It didn't have all this cool stuff up here, all this design. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because first it was a Mandela for me. And then suddenly it starts showing up in all this mud flood, hidden history stuff. So when you start arguing about how this was always hidden, it wasn't. This place was not evidence for mud flood in my old timeline. Now it is. So I just wanted to bring that up. I don't think it's uncovered. It's different here. Look at all of this stuff up here that wasn't there. These people things on the top weren't there. That wasn't there. It wasn't that fancy. All this little ornate pooty potties. It was kind of simple before. It was mostly just columns. I mean, it was still beautiful because it's big, but I mean, but no. Okay, so why am I bringing this up? So first mud flood happens and then this changes, and so we've got this storyline and there's starting to be more and more evidence for it. The storyline is that I'm not sure the exact timelines they're pushing, but somebody mentioned in the chat like around 1840. Now if you look back, there are all these cities with huge ornate Roman style, column style buildings that were lining the roads, beautiful old buildings. And supposedly the city was fairly new with not a large population. And if you look at the times that these buildings were supposedly built, photos when they were brand new show mature trees, like mold, dirt, and all this crud on them that should not be in a new building. I mean, when they build a new shiny building, it's shiny for like at least 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. It doesn't look all weathered with the, that look when like, something's accumulated pollution over like decades, that look. So the argument is that there's like maybe like 1,000 years of history missing. Somebody else built these all over the world, because indeed there are Roman architecture of these column styles all over the world that are very, very, very similar, and all kind of have been claimed to have been built by people where there weren't even hardly any people living there, and like we can't even build these now. When's the last time they built something like this? It almost never happens. So how did these people with carts and horses build this stuff when there weren't that many people and there wasn't that much wealth? And, we don't even do it now. And it's super ornate stuff in there. And so, like I said, this used to look kind of, like, it was nice, but it wasn't like this. But now, it fits with this whole mud flood thing. So I'm wondering if that's the new timeline. The new timeline, according to this, is that there used to be a great sophisticated civilization that is being hidden from us, that built these buildings. And then we just sort of claimed them as our own and claimed we built them. So I don't know. Maybe that's going to be the new storyline. So first the Mandela, and now we have this new storyline. There's another weird thing that I keep seeing in these old photos, and as we know, photographs are going back in time. So we have photos of a long time ago now, a long time ago. So the old photos, the skies are always like white. So this official storyline is that the photos are overexposed, which whites out the sky. I just don't buy it. When the sky is like this blue, I just don't think you're going to white it out. You see the blue water, why wouldn't you see the blue sky? But the further confusion there is that sometimes when you blow up the images, you can see that they've like done it's like they cut and pasted some white paper over the whole sky. And you can see the cut and pasting sometimes sucks, because sometimes it'll smear over part of the part that, it's obviously paper added on. So it is not overexposure, because there'll be like these sharp lines and stuff. Or like a big smudge out of part of the tree. Something that would be impossible to explain by overexposure. So now the storyline is, what were they hiding? Why did they white out the sky so you couldn't see it? What was really in the sky? So that's going to be like the new mystery. Now, in my old timeline, old photos showed the sky like normal. You could see some clouds and stuff sometimes. The new timeline, the old photos don't have that. So that's the new mystery. So I don't know, what's gonna come out, but all right. So notice the reversal. My old timeline is there was the Middle Ages. So some people are saying like the Middle Ages were actually the time these were built. And the story that we get now of the Middle Ages is baloney. My old timeline, we sucked and we built our way up to here, where we are now. But this new timeline story is like we have fallen from, a much more sophisticated system. And there's been a big push of evidence of like different heights of people and like giants. That there's just all this evidence coming out of the woodwork for it. That like maybe another like giants race built these, and that's why they're all super tall. So like all the doorways and stuff are huge. So I don't know, it's just a really interesting storyline. I don't know where it's going to go, but I talked about that channel called UAP. It's UAP, and he's been covering more of that, and it's just fun to watch the old photos. He'll just scroll through all these neat old photos, and he'll point out anomalies. And one thing really neat about UAP is he's just very visually observant. He's a very smart person, and he just sees. He's very good at seeing anomalies. Occasionally, I think he's a little off because he may not have a knowledge base. Just like a couple times he said some things about plants, and I'm like, no, that's not right, because I know a lot about plants. So, he's not 100. He doesn't claim to be 100%, so some of his theories will probably be a bit off, but he just sees so many amazing anomalies. I mean, look at that. That wasn't like that. That's palestiphi. It wasn't all ornate like that. That's some nice stuff. So yeah, I really like to watch his channel. He's been digging into mud floods, looking at the old photos and just seeing. I mean, even if 90% of the stuff he comes up with is wrong, it's still, fascinating. It's just fascinating. Okay, so this next one is for somebody on Retconned. Username I am interesting please is the username. And this one is kind of an interesting one. Do you guys remember somebody going to Wendy's and finding like a cut off finger in her food and suing? And there was months and months where they were looking for the finger, and then for me, they thought that it was somebody in the in the preparation line, lost a finger. They thought it was that, but they never. I think they settled on that. Well, do you remember that? Because in this timeline, the storyline is different than I remember, and I'm just kind of curious if what you guys remember that. Do you know anyone from Iceland? Oh, no, you're talking to Julia. Maybe thoughts become reality, create reality. Yeah, or you go to the timeline that matches, or a little bit of both. That's stupid. You can't be a baby full of eggs, nor could man balls do such a thing. Everything would be an open. Yeah, I know. It's kind of, I always wondered about that. I'm like, okay, if you're aging and aging, but then you have a baby, why doesn't the baby come out like all aged with aged cells? I mean, like, what's so special about creating a baby that the cells are all fresh? And, I have wondered about that. I suspect now that what happens is that you age because you're kind of sick of being on Earth. Like, Earth just wears you down. So I think that the body is like a representation of the spirit. And so I think that's actually aging. That's just my theory. And that's why, they say more jawline, androgynous reality. Yeah, and that's another thing about the new mud flood stories. There's a lot more androgynous looking characters in the carvings and stuff. But I lost my other train of thought now. Wasn't that a cheaply made stucco job? Yes. I mean, as a kid, I thought it was kind of cool. It was big and it had columns. But even as a kid, I kind of saw some of the cheapy parts because it was like cast, you know. And maybe it still is, but it's a lot better. That's another rabbit hole, the whole casting thing. Because one thing UAP was finding on a recent video that he was doing with somebody else, like kind of a team up thing, was that there's these old photos now of like France, and the France had the columns and there was damage, and inside the columns it was ripped open. Inside were these like stones just stacked up, and then the columns were sort of like stucco cast on, and I've never seen that, and they were trying to figure out what that is, and I'm not even sure what to make of all of it. Sometimes you just got to sit back and kind of see where the show goes. It was simple with almost nothing connecting. Yeah, I'm glad you remember the old Palace of Fine Arts. It was very simple, and even as a child, and when I would visit there, pieces were falling out, like chunks of this, cement junk, was falling out of the domes. And ironically, you could still walk under it, even though once in a while a giant chunk would fall out and would probably kill you if you were under it. But I guess back then they figured the chances of it falling when you were under there were so tiny that they didn't really worry about it. But at some points, people got more paranoid and they blocked it, and they supposedly fixed it, repaired it, but they did not supposedly add a whole bunch of new cool stuff to it. It's supposed to have been repaired to the original. But now I kind of wonder, like, did the whole repair storyline also maybe cover some of the changes or give excuses for them? But if you go back and look at the old photos from back when it was created, it was exactly the same as you see it now. They're slowly uncovering the Bosnia Pyramid, finding interesting rock formations, or the Bosnia Pyramid is slowly developing in the current timeline. It depends on how you look at it. Many odd changes to cities in California and Las Vegas. I remember being more north. Yeah, I remember Sacramento being in the middle, and now it's up by Northern California. And I remember San Francisco being really close at the top. And now there's a whole bunch of California above San Francisco that I am not familiar with. I have not heard those names until the last few years. They had the raging wildfires up there, like, last year, the year before. Never heard of those places that used to be not much above San Francisco. So Sacramento, it's like maybe San Fran is pushed down and now it's near Sacramento. I mean, California is a lot smaller now for me. Baja was still part of this country before I got here. I am not sure on that one, sadly. I was just too young and not paying attention. I remember thinking that it was part of California, but I just wasn't sure. San Fran was always 6 hours from LA. When I was younger, I didn't drive that, so I'm not sure. I didn't drive it until I was older. How long did it take me? 5 hours. So, but that was not that long ago. And then it's tricky because there's more traffic now. So, you're driving slower. All right. All right, so the Wendy's one. So apparently in this story timeline, that whole thing was debunked. and it was turned out to be faked, and she didn't really find a finger, and there wasn't really a finger there, and all this stuff. And that's I Am Interesting Please remembers that being a legit finger find, and the big mystery of the universe about whose finger it was. So that's that one. Baja California is in Mexico's peninsula. It is now. We're talking about way back. Was it always? All right, so that's like half. Okay. Local changes. Today was a beautiful day. Perfect weather. Another reason why I wanted to go out and like shop and go to restaurants before they lock down again. I have noticed this summer and last summer, like 3 summers ago, it was freaking hot. I was frying my butt off. I don't have AC at work. I was dying. Last summer was pretty nice. This summer has been even nicer, and you've got all those low clouds up there, and the sun is not beating down. And usually July, we have these 2 sayings for here. It's June gloom, May gray, and June gloom. In the May and the June, there's a lot of marine layer that hangs over and keeps the temperature from frying. May gray, June gloom. And then July was fry, because that would be the end of the marine layer. You know, there's a little variation, but by July you expect to fry. No more marine layer. It's freaking hot. July, August, September. So July fry. But this is, you know, we usually, even by the end of June, it's really hot, and it hasn't been. And then it freaking rained. You know, I don't remember all this rain. Last year it rained. A couple years ago there was these weird tropical storms for like 8 months. That seems to have gone away again. But I just thought it was weird that nobody was really commenting on it. So today I heard no sky July, and I've lived here for like 20-something years. I've never heard of no sky July. So now there's this saying, and I found it all over the internet, that July can be all gloomy, and it's called no sky July. So I was just kind of laughing, because like, what? 2 Atlantic Oceans. Yeah, I've covered that one. There's definitely was not 2 Atlantic Oceans before. How does anybody buy Christopher Columbus story? In this timeline, Africa is close to South America. Yeah, you know, and that's why you're starting to say it here. Oh, Christopher Columbus was not the first person, and there was Vikings. I mean, there's a freaking Viking settlement that in the Canada. You know, Vikings were here first. In my timeline, that was just crazy conspiracy theory with 0 evidence. So yeah, the Columbus story is already breaking down, and it's already been mostly debunked. Now it's just bad teachers that trained you from poor quality textbooks. I thought it never rained in Southern California. You know, we wouldn't have any plants if it didn't rain. It just doesn't rain a lot, but it rains, you know. Never heard no sky July in my 42 plus years. Yeah, no sky July. And I looked it up, and there it is. No sky July. Now, if it's really hot, they still call it July fry, but also it could be no sky July. And I'm like, huh? And I was just thinking, I'm like, man, we've had a good, nice, easy summer, and nobody's commenting on what is sky July. It's no sky July, which just means you can't see the sky because there's a marine layer. So it's similar to June gloom and May gray is a saying for here all of a sudden. No sky July. So I don't, you know, this is Southern California statements, so I don't know if they would ever use that out of San Diego. All I can tell you is when I moved here, it was May gray and June gloom, and that's it. And now there's no sky July. So if you're not in Southern California, you may not have ever heard of this, but if you, SoCal used to have monsoons like we have in Arizona. Not for me, freaking no. In fact, you didn't have monsoons in Arizona either. You had freaking hot weather, not monsoons. in my old timeline. I'm not saying it didn't happen to you, but no. We didn't have monsoons. You didn't have monsoons in my timeline. It was just freaking hot. Okay, no sky, July. All right, so what's that thing on the thumbnail? Boink. Apparently these things are common too. So those like water striders, which is what they used to call those really thin, sticky, stick-like, like lithe, fine spiders that could walk on the surface of the water on like little ponds and stuff. Well, not only are there big, fat, juicy spiders now, but they actually grab giant, big old fish. I mean, giant compared to them. It's minnows and stuff. But they get fish 3 times bigger than them and drag them puppers out of the water and eat them. So they're fisher spiders. And they're not those little lithe guys that I remember from my childhood either. These are some meaty looking spiders. See, those legs are a lot thicker than I remember. I do believe I've said many times that water tension is stronger here, so it can hold up more spider. So these guys not only, so in my old time they would eat other insects on the surface, but here they grab like giant fishes and eat them. And some of them can even like hang out underwater and like hunt under there. And they only have 4 eyes. Somebody commented on that. Most spiders have 8. I don't remember spiders having more than 2 originally, and suddenly they had these turret head things a couple years ago, and I was like flipping out, and they have all these eyes, and so yeah, spiders are pretty bad mofos. Look at that thing, it's big old freaking fangs. That guy has 8. So yeah, these are all over the world, different species of these fish-eating spiders. There's jillions of them. I looked them up in the wiki. They said they're everywhere, like every continent, all over, ponds and rivers. Just neat. But yeah, the spiders. Look at that thing. Spider plucks pet goldfish. Look at it, junked out this giant, nice goldfish. It's like, what the f? Pet owner horrified after his goldfish. Dang, you gotta start protecting your goldfish from the freaking spiders now? I mean, look at how that big juicy fish he stole. So fish-eating spiders discovered by scientists, but if you click on this, it's like a new species of fish-eating spider. And then you realize that it's a new species amongst like hundreds. This is another one. I found a few. They're eating little baby frogs. These tiny spiders devour lizards 3 times their size. Okay, so that's a little lizard. I did see some eating frogs. Mostly it was these other things. Oh, there's another one. I think he's got a frog. So yeah, and I've already covered there's spiders that are eating like little tiny birds and stuff too. Oh, there, he's got a big old frog. So, yeah. You thought spiders were creepy before. Look at that. There's a lot with frogs. So that one was found by Sparkling Sapphire. SPRKLNGSAPHIRE. She's a user on Retcon. Very good find. So they're found on all continents, and they have toxins in their fangs also. So we talked a bit on the conference about extinctions, and I've been kind of watching like dodos and stuff. And I just stumbled on this because I keep waiting to see if dodos are going to come back. And I found this. So apparently dodos weren't actually fat. It's just a mistaken assumption. How much did the dodo really weigh? Dodos just got a bit slimmer, or maybe they didn't. A new paper challenges the popular conception that this pigeon which went extinct 300 years ago, was comically plump, instead arguing that it weighed just a bit more than a wild turkey, but in another report, critics say that Dodo wasn't quite that svelte. So the argument here is that there was a popular preference for fat, juicy game birds, so they overstuffed them, and then everybody thought they were fat because of that, and they're really not that fat. And so I don't know. I'm wondering if this is kind of a precursor of some kind of Dodo comeback or something. So the story is that they were always just portrayed wrong. I don't know. It's not like really a Mandela, but I think it's a little fishy. Not to make a pun on the spiders. Okay, let's see what you guys are up to. Nice presentation on the conference. Thank you. It's just my usual stuff, but I had better slides and stuff this time. I knew about spider eating birds when I was a kid. Not me. That was new, and I've been watching it develop too. Because first it was just little tiny hummingbirds, but now there's other birds that they get. When it first showed up, it was just the tiniest hummingbirds. Tarantulas in SoCal. I'm suspicious about that one. Those showed up about 5 years ago. I'd never seen them. And then suddenly they're like, oh, there's tarantulas in SoCal. And I'm like, what? And I started seeing them every year after that. But for the first 15 years, I never saw any. And then after that, I saw them every year. So I'm very suspicious about that one. Dark Wolf's Den loves spiders. I'm going to get more of them just for you. Fish eating spiders. Yes. Where in SoCal are you? Oh, you're not talking to me. If you're talking to me, I'm North County. Talk about the Mandela one. Yeah, I actually did experience the Mandela death. All the funerals, they couldn't shut up about it on TV for weeks. All the horrors, blah, blah, that he died. It's so unfair. It's so cruel. Then it seemed like it died out, and then 3 months later, they were talking about him alive. I'm like, what? I'm like, man, I didn't want to think about it because it was so creepy at the time. Like, how could I be so wrong? And then there was the Jane Goodall one right after that. I'm like, you get a little scared because you think you're going crazy, and that's kind of how I felt then. My mother said it was insane as a big event in TV as the royal wedding for Diana and Charles. Yeah, it was more than that. It was just, the tributes and the this and the... And I used to watch TV more back then, so those ones I would notice more. Where can I see this conference? You can go to iMac. So I'll go onto YouTube. I'm pretty sure if you just stick in iMac channel. I think iMac.world brings you there too. I'll do the iMac channel. So basically, it's free, and they live streamed it, so that's why. And there's like Q&As and stuff. There we go. International Mandela Effect Conference. They have last year's. They taped everything from last year, and that's on there somewhere. This one's mine. I was on Thursday, so I'm on. So they basically stream for hours of the day. So I think there was an interview by me, and then there was my speech, and then there was a Q&A by me, and then there was a speech by another guy and his Q&A, and then later there's a group Q&A from everybody from that day. So I'm in that. So that day was my day, sort of. These are other people on other days. And I think if you go back, you can see last year's conference somewhere on here too. Let's see. Yeah, see, this 6 months ago one, I think those are ones from like last year. And then if you go to, I think if you go to imac.world, something like that, I think that gets you there too. Yeah, imac.world also gets you that. And mandelaeffectconference.org should also get you there. Oh, okay, that gets you to the website. And somewhere on here, there's a link to the. That. I think the fastest route is just to go to the iMac YouTube channel. There's one video that's not on there because I guess it just nobody liked it, so it's not going back up. We'd like to see a virtual conference next time with voices and whatnot. Well, yeah, we had voices, but that was what it was the first year. And if you go back, you can see last year's, and it was basically humans went to a place and they gave speeches and then they just taped the whole thing. But because of COVID, they last minute switched over to to the online thing. It was never originally planned to be like that. A lot of people got invited to speak because they were planning to go the next year. They had gone the first year, so they're like, "Oh, do you guys want to speak since you're going to come anyway?" You know, so it wasn't really planned originally. I think they would have done things differently if it was always going to be a YouTube conference. I am guessing that they will want to do a live conference again next year if the C thing chills out. I'm not sure if that will be possible though. Not next year, maybe the year after. I think they're going to milk this thing. Where is it? California? Okay, the original one was in Idaho. It was Ketchum, Idaho. And if you look, there's like an old video where I did a little thing on my channel about Ketchum, Idaho. It's kind of a weird, it's a quirky little town. It's just sort of a weird, to me, it felt really surreal. Maybe just because it was so different from California, but it just had a weird feel to it. And they just had these little quirky things in there. Until they force mandatory vaccines. I think there'll always be an out. You know, if you look in the Bible, it says you will not be able to do commerce unless you get the mark of the beast or carry the number of his name. I think it said carry. So I'm thinking that there might be some kind of ID pass that you can get instead of the mark. There might be some hurdles, and it may depend on where you live, but you might have to get some doctor note. Who knows? There are going to be hassles, but I think in the end it'll get sorted out. Idaho is its own kind of place. See, I'd never been to Idaho, and then Ketchum is kind of weird. It's neat there. It's a nice place, but it just seems strange. I didn't mind it, but it seemed weirdly flat. I don't know how to describe it. Not in the geography, but the energy of it. Like it just maybe because there's not many people, but yet it was a tourist town with a decent number of. I don't know how to describe it. I have done a little bit of traveling, and I've never been in a place that just seems like it's missing some texture or something. It's like I know it doesn't make any sense, but anyone see Tiananmen Square when it happened live? Well, I mean, I wasn't in Tiananmen Square, but I was alive during that time, and they would play that stuff on the news all the time. And he did not die for me, but yet it was different than it is now. That is actually not, that specific death one is not. I've been in Idaho for 2.5 years. Yeah, Dark Wolf. I don't know. What does it seem like to you versus where you used to live for Ketchum? All right. I may have covered bits of this one before, but there's a little bit more, so I'm not sure. I'm getting kind of confused about how many planets rain diamonds, because first it was just some new planet where it rains diamonds, and then I think I might have covered that it rains diamonds on Neptune, but I don't think I had both Uranus and Neptune. So now it says that it rains diamonds on Uranus and Neptune. Now, I do remember covering that Uranus supposedly smells like farts. Just like, you ever feel like you're getting trolled? Okay. High pressure experiments suggest large amounts of diamonds are formed from methane on ice giant planets Uranus and Neptune, while some planets in other solar systems may be almost pure diamond. Diamonds are also found in stars and may have been the first mineral ever formed. Okay, so there's even parts that are saying that there might be like diamondbergs floating on an ocean of liquid carbon on Uranus. So like diamondbergs, like giant diamonds, like icebergs, okay, floating on liquefied diamond, which is carbon. And but then there's this ice giant planets, Uranus and Neptune. I never heard of them being called ice giant planets. Now these were like gaseous planets for me. And they were made out of like gas, you know, but now they're ice giant planets, and they're saying that there's more hard rock and ice than there is gas. So in my old timeline, that was just gas, but here they're ice giant planets. And then there was a couple other ones out there that are gas giants because they have more gas than land. But I remember the gas giants all being gas. But now some of them are ice giants. And then the other ones that are still considered gaseous have still a bunch of solid earth and stuff, just more gas than earth. And so they're the gas giants. So that's a whole change in the story. There were no ice giants. And all of those gas planets were made out of freaking gas. They weren't made out of a bunch of core and ice and whatever. So yeah, we've got... And the last time I looked up diamonds, there were no diamondbergs. So those are like two new additions to that story. I remember him being dragged off by a concerned bystander. That still happened for me, but the whole jumping all over the tank didn't happen, and he didn't have those garbage bags. For me, he held up his hand like that. He still got dragged off in this timeline, but what he did before that is different now. She called Ketchum weird. It is! You have to drink every time I say weird. Fart diamonds. Yeah, it's fart smelling diamonds on Uranus. You can't make this stuff up. You just can't. It's just too ridiculous. Saw it when it happened, but turned away when the tank ran over the guy. Yeah, you know, a lot of people remember him getting flattened. That was one of the few Mandelas that I did not see that everybody else, pretty much everybody else saw, even from early on. Eva, you seem healthier, more vibrant. You know, I actually have been taking antihistamines. Just one Claritin a day has really helped. Also, weirdly, I've been more lively at night than day lately. I've covered that. I don't know why. So if I was running these videos at like 9 a.m., you would say, man, you look like crap anymore, because I just can't. I don't know why I can't open my freaking eyes and wake up in the morning. Like, I can get up, I can walk around, but my brain, like, it won't come. It's like it takes hours to like start, you know. I'll just be like a stupid zombie. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's like all this condensed time and all these shifts are just like I'm not like adapting fast enough. All the pressure, I don't know. I'm making it, but I'm not like, I don't know. Some of you guys seem to be doing better than me. I'm not like sailing through it. It mostly is physical. I just feel tired and spacey all the time. Not all the time, but he wasn't doing his shopping, didn't get up on the tank. Yeah, that's Broadnet's caster remembers mine. He did this iconic stop sign thing with his hand, and he doesn't do that here. It was so iconic. It's just, that one's one of the ones I'm like, I can't believe people don't remember that iconography of that hand. But diamond actually don't cut your skin easily. You can touch a tile saw. Yeah, I know all that lapidary stuff. But a natural diamond isn't sharp anyways. So it's just like a rock basically. It's a blob. It doesn't come out all faceted or anything. Yeah, the diamond grit's neat because you can kind of touch it. You will grind down your fingernail though. And if you grind it down hard enough and it gets to the quick, that is very irritating. Play some pickleball. I did. I played on this morning. I was a good girl. I played a lot of pickle this morning. Wednesday can be a very long day for me. If I get up early, I play pickleball. Then I've got to go to work. Then I got to rush back here and do any last minute preps for the live stream at midnight. And then 3 o'clock in the morning, I go to bed. All right, so got that. All right, so the storyline of animals keeping pets continues on with another example. Remember the old storyline that only humans used tools? Well, not only did they use tools, but they used pets. Screech owls, and screech owls are from the old timeline. They've been around. But they did not used to keep pet blind snakes. So the storyline now is, and I've never even heard of these freaking little snakes, Texas blind snakes. They look really weird. The head and the tail doesn't have a head-tail look. I should look those up. There's a lot of weird little snaky things now. So I've never heard of these. Okay, granted, maybe I'm not an expert on snakes, but see, they look like big worms, and that's what makes me really suspicious. They're almost blind. So the storyline now is that these screech owls were found first noticed in the 1980s. No, I don't think so. That's a long time ago. That these screech owls are taking these snakes, and instead of killing them, like they normally, when they get their prey, they would kill the prey and lop off the head and bring the rest of it back to feed the little chicklets. But for these Texas blind snakes, they would carry them back alive with the head and still writhing around, and they would plop them in. With the birds. So these are tiny snakes, so they couldn't really eat like a chick. And so they're like, well, why aren't they killing these snakes? And so what they found is that they're putting them in the nest, and then these things burrow down into the nest and eat like all the pests and insects and any yucky chiggers or whatever, and then they make the nest healthier. And maybe they'll die later if they run out of food, but that's not the bird's problem, I guess. And sometimes the birds might get the little chicks might get their teeth on these and eat these, and that's okay too. But mostly they're just keeping these alive to clean the nest. So they're keeping them like little pets. And then they supposedly did research, and they found that the birds that have the pet snakes have more healthier chicks and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, no. Anyway, but yeah, they've supposedly known about that since 1980. So that's not right. All right, I think I just have one left. Okay, I found that one. I'm just trying to make sure I haven't forgotten any attributions, but I think we're cool. My bedroom is a metal grounded shielded mobile home, so a real Faraday cage. Oh, so the phone signal doesn't get in, yeah? Yeah, the 5G is very tiny waves, though. The 5G might be able to get in more. Also, some through the windows it can come in, but yeah, you're probably going to have a lot less radiation than the average. Tinfoil hat won't work because in order to block with tinfoil does block EMF, but you have to have it completely covered. So, you know, your neck and your face are going to be in the way, and it actually can act as an antenna and get stuck up in there. So, I know you're just joking, but actually tinfoil is an EMF blocker, but it doesn't work good as a hat. But, you know, if it comes down to it, you can wrap a cell phone in it and block 5G. You're not going to get any phones or any phone calls either, but foil on the bedroom, yeah, that should help. Fast worms freak me out. Yeah, those were creepy. The crazy worms and the fast worms. Protesting and riots are not the same. Yeah, see now. Okay, so you have a protest where there's 99% of people acting good and you have 5 people causing trouble. So do you say that all the protesters are rioters, or do you just say there's a couple rioters and a bunch of protesters? Because I don't see a lot of rioting. There have been a few cases where I saw a fair lot of theft out of 1 or 2 buildings, but they weren't violent. They weren't burning stuff down. They were just pilfering stuff very orderly and politely with each other in kind of a hurry. But that's the extent of it that I really saw. So say that the police want an excuse to crack down, you know, maybe just get a couple rioters in there to stir up stuff, or maybe it was just gangbangers who are violent anyway and they don't even care about what they're protesting. So there's a whole bunch of issues. Then you got the issue of Antifa, which I find very interesting. I actually have been trying to find out more about Antifa, but officially they have no base, or they don't really exist. There's no direct funding links. I mean, people say Soros funded them, but there's no direct links. You can see Soros funded a few BLM things, but he's funded like bajillions of things. So what is Antifa? Is it even just one thing? I mean, like, anybody could put on a mask and cover their hair and say they're Antifa, and you don't know. I mean, some Antifa could be police in disguise. They could be black ops in disguise. They could be Republicans trying to make liberals look bad, or they could be liberals making themselves look bad. And 99% of them could be people who just don't like fascism, and only 1% of them are these other things. We don't know what. And, you know, with this whole mask thing, now they can hide their identity. It's very interesting, the whole Antifa thing. And I'm not going to take too many opinions on there, but I am going to look back. I'm going to sit back and kind of watch that storyline, Antifa. People like to think they know. We don't know crap, you know, and maybe it's different in each timeline. Maybe you think you know, and then you'll go to this timeline and wrong. And maybe if you went to that timeline, you would have been right. So I wouldn't jump on the bandwagon too much. You know, what I've been noticing is that stuff spreads over the internet and people just say it like fact. Like, Soros funded Antifa. I mean, maybe he did. I don't know, but there's not like a ton of evidence for it. So why is this like accepted as the gospel's holy truth that Soros funded Antifa? I mean, Antifa doesn't even have official existence. Who the heck? Who knows who funded them or who they are? Whenever something becomes like the gospel's holy truth without hardly any evidence, I get suspicious of it. And I think Soros has had his little fingers, you know, apparently, according to evidence, in a lot of fishy pies. But when it becomes like this sacred cow that's pushed without evidence and spreads all over the internet, that's when I start distrusting it, that maybe it's something else. So Antifa is one of those stories I don't trust, because why did it spread this like story spread so hard when there's really just not, there's not evidence for it. Yeah, Soros funds a bunch of bad things. So, if I wanted to do something bad, wouldn't I just blame it on Soros? You know, pick someone you don't like. Oh, it was Bill Gates did it. Now there's a whole bunch of evidence for stuff Soros did do, but they're not talking about that. They're only talking about this Antifa thing, one of the few things that there's not really any evidence for. It's weird. Anybody watch Really Graceful? She deals in facts. I really like Really Graceful. That's a channel. You will see that I am subscribed to her. Really Graceful. I like her. There's nobody on this. There's no YouTuber that I always agree with like 110% of the time. But she tries to spit up the facts without a bunch of assumptions that these are the facts. Here she is, Really Graceful. She has a really nice, sweet voice too, so it's nice. I kind of like people who are kind of a little more mellow and very intellectual. So this is Really Graceful. She's got a lot of followers. She tries to cover stuff without a bunch of spin. She does do a lot of digging. She's kind of more my style. And maybe when I was younger, I wouldn't have liked that calm style, but I do like it. And UAP is another one I like. He's got a couple channels. Where is he at? He should be up here. I do watch him a lot. I put UAP on last time, but UAP channel. I haven't watched that one yet. UAP is big into the flat earth stuff. Videos. He's got several channels. This might not be the one. No, this might not be the one that he, I love it when he watches launches and then like points out all the stupid stuff in it, like the inconsistencies. Here, so he has UAP channel, and then he has just UAP, the channel, but it's just UAP. And here, this is the one I was just watching. A lot of really interesting images in here. These are old photos. He does a thing with this guy. I forgot that guy's name already. Martin Liedtke. And I have actually subbed to Martin Liedtke's channel, but I just been the last few days and I haven't had time to actually watch the thing. So there's a lot of these old photos now that exist in the current timeline, and from going much further back. And there's inconsistencies in a lot of them, and I think this might be basically our new hints to our new reality. The quality of the workmanship versus the people going around in horse and buggies. Another one they're talking about that they show in a lot of them is this is like these giant buildings and hardly any people around, all beautiful stone. Another one that they show a number of is, okay, so these are the whited out skies, and some of them aren't done well. Some look really possibly real, but some of them you can see spots where they did a crappy cutout, basically. Another thing that they show is some of these buildings, they have this beautiful ornate building, and then it's supposed to be new, but it looks kind of old. And then they have this crap, cheesy banner or cobbled together signage. Now, you could argue that was just the sign of the times, but when you have everything immaculate, ornate, and perfect, and then you have this crap sign, I mean, don't you at least put half as much effort into the sign of your business that you did supposedly in building this giant stone building that we can't even build now? and they built it with horse and buggies and a very small amount of populace in the area. And you built this all and you don't even have your business up and running. It's fishy. In this current timeline, it's fishy. So they go through all these old photos. See, every one of them now, you can't see the sky. It's always just white. What the heck is that? Actually, I'm going to have to go back and look at that. I don't even know what that is. Sometimes I watch these while I'm working, so I miss like important stuff. Same architecture all over the world by the same master stone builders. See, and I think that in this timeline there's a lot more of those old buildings, and it fits with this new storyline that's getting very popular now. We are most likely in a post-apocalypse world inheriting old world. In this timeline, yes, there is a lot of evidence for that developing. It wasn't there in my old timeline. So I think we have it. We're getting a new history. We see the Mandelas, and then pretty soon I'm seeing the pattern that a lot of the Mandelas are feeding right into this new storyline. A lot of the history Mandelas. Crap sign reminds me of Florida. So many pricey buildings on burial mounds. That advanced old architecture does seem to be popping up more often. Certain buildings, like, some buildings are getting upgraded, like the Palace of the Fine Arts and these old buildings and like the Indian stepwells. But then other icons are just being downgraded to crap, like the Sphinx, and some of those old art and stuff is just crap now. So certain things are like going to be the new storyline, is what I'm thinking. And the star forts, where did all those come from? I mean, the first few showed up and it was all over Mandela land, and now they're freaking everywhere. There's one in San Francisco. I'm a master stonemason, elite level, and it's taken a toll on a body that wasn't good from the get-go. Yeah, well, carrying all that stones all the time, I mean, it just can't be that good for you. It's just not, the body's just not designed for that much wear and tear, I don't think. Maybe we'll get better at it in a couple more shifts, though. Okay, so there's one left, and this one was actually from somebody on the iMech, mentioned it in comments. My Life DIY, do it yourself, from iMech conference, mentioned this one. I was so laughing. Okay, so zombie fires. I'm like, what? Zombie fires in the warming Arctic. So now the story is that fires get started in the Arctic, and since the Arctic is getting warmer, sometimes the fires burn through the entire winter and then like flare up again when it gets hot again. So there's a couple of issues with this. Okay, first of all, I mean, yeah, the story is the Arctic got warmer, but it used to be snow. I mean, it didn't warm up that much. But the Arctic now is all like green half the year. And the definition of tundra has changed. For me, tundra used to be frozen solid ground that was frozen solid all year because it was freaking cold. And then after a while, they started saying that the first few inches of tundra might defrost. And now the story is like there's grasses and green crap and the tundra is just frozen like down lower, but there's plenty of room on the top. And then there's like, oh, it's defrosted so much that these giant chasms opened. I'm like, but now we've got this peat bog story Critical peat land is at risk with region warming much. Peat land? There was no freaking peat land all over the Arctica or Arctic. I mean, peat land? So, like peat bogs. There was no peat bogs. It was freaking tundra. So now the story is like the fires get in these peat bogs and then they just burn all winter in these peat bogs. And I'm like, what? The snow is gone. The sea ice has melted. The mosquitoes are voyaging north of Arctic Circle. White Arctic hares now hop among green bushes. But if you go back 10 years ago, that imagery is there also with the green and the peat bogs. There was no freaking peat bogs. Peat bogs at risk. They didn't even exist. It's thought many of the fires erupting are zombie fires, so-called because despite the cold, wet winter, they have nonetheless continued to smolder, often in peatlands, and then reignite when warmer, drier weather arrives. Well, I don't get how this fire is in this bog. I mean, a peat bog is water, right? So, I mean, like, how does it continue smoldering in a bog? You know, it doesn't really make sense. I'm like, it's a bog, right? It's water, so this can lead to large new fires which threaten the existence of the peatlands. A major carbon sink. What peatlands? I mean, I heard of that in Europe, but not in like the Arctic. Peatlands store more carbon than the world's rainforest combined. Oh, now we have to worry about. I thought the biggest sink was like the rainforest, but now I guess it's the peat bogs. You just can't keep up. If they were to burn, the massive amounts of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere would immediately render all efforts to control emissions futile. Yes, we're all going to die because of the zombie peat bog fires now, apparently. The fire spot in the Siberian Arctic Circle might be zombie fires. Carbon-rich peat soils provide good fuel for an overwintering fire. Although fires are recognized as playing an essential role in the Arctic, there are concerns that the increasing number and sizes of the fires could bring major changes to the environment with global implications. I do not remember there being an essential role for fires in the Arctic. It was freaking frozen tundra and freaking frozen snow. You couldn't start a fire on the ice and the frozen tundra. Fires are quite normal in Arctic ecosystems. They often play an important role in tree reproduction and regeneration. Baloney! Not in my timeline. The carbon emitted from wildfires is resequestered when the vegetation grows back. However, an increasing frequency and severity of fires may lead to permanent changes in these ecosystems. What evs, people? No, this is just wrong. Peat bogs, zombie fires in the Arctic. I say no. If you want to be shook, watch Mud Fossil University. I've seen some of that stuff. When it first came out, I just couldn't take it seriously, the mud fossil thing. And, you know, it's going to be a while before I can really consider that. I just don't see good evidence for it. It's just because something's patterned like something doesn't mean it is that thing. But, you know, who knows? You know, give me another 10 or 15 shifts and a little bit of better evidence and maybe I'll be on board. I think that right now I'm really seeing the most evidence for this missing 1,000 years thing. I don't know. There was another thing where, like, before, like, 1840 something, a lot of the markers had a different mark. Instead of using a 1, like 1841, it would use, like, these other symbols. And so they're arguing that maybe that other symbol was actually from, you know, it wasn't 1841. It was a different era, like a whole different marking system for time that they, like, kind of erased from history. So the argument is, like, these buildings, these really neat mason and stone buildings, were built by another civilization, and there was a giant mud flood that kind of wiped everything out, and we went and dug these cities out. And so there's a lot of images that look more like we're digging out stuff than we're really building it. So they're claimed to be construction, this is the construction of such and such building. But the construction looks really like it's so claptrappy and disorganized, and there's just like horses and wood and crap laying all over, and you're just like, you can't build like a beautiful building like that, like like a bunch of like Keystone Cops, but you could probably dig out, just like shovel out dirt and expose an existing building that was already nice, and then just say you built it. I claim this building as, claim credit for something. So I don't know. It just seems like that's the storyline. That's the evidence is coming for it. I'm starting to see, like a pattern that this is starting to look more possible as these shifts happen. It seems like they're pointing more towards this new style of history. I remember tundra had some greens in summer, and the taiga had big trees. Nah, for me, tundra was like permafrost. You know, the tundra was the land of the permafrost, and permafrost meant permanent frost. I want to believe the Devil's Tower is a giant tree trunk. It looks like a tree trunk. I don't think the Devil's Tower existed in my old timeline, but fossilized trees, you can see like the vesicles and stuff in it, and I don't see that last time I checked Devil's Towers. Who knows? Maybe another 5-10 shifts, there'll be more evidence for it. I think that the mud floods and that we didn't build those cool buildings after all storyline is easier to swallow for the average human, as being less of a jump. So maybe we'll go there first. Being led by the hand to accept this new reality bit by bit, possibly. Check on some of the ancient buildings cut from stone. The ceiling murals all depict many peoples coming through multiple portals. I'll check it out. I'm sure I'll get exposed to it if I dig in that rabbit hole anymore. I recall permafrost meaning no ability to grow. Yeah, exactly. It was permanent frost. It was frozen solid. That's permafrost. Devil's Tower shape has changed. Let me just check that thing out. Devil's Tower. Oh, yeah, it does look different. Okay. First of all, I don't really remember it tipping to the side like that, like this. I don't remember that. It says sideways tipper now. It used to be very straight up and down. It's interesting. It does look different. It actually looks a tad less tree-like to me now. I don't remember all this bumbly junk on the bottom here. It had like bigger ridges. Here's a close-up. Interesting. That's not really, tree-like to me, that pattern at all. I mean, oh, it's all pointy and stuff. That's not like the trees we have now. They don't grow like that. So You know, I'm not really on board with the tree thing, but who knows? You know, maybe if people believe it long enough, it'll become true. We just need more people to believe. Yeah, it actually looks a tad less tree-like to me now. Dun, dun, dun. So, yep. Anyway, I think I'm down the home stretch here. That's the bark. Yeah, but bark doesn't really grow like that in, you know, current trees. I don't know, maybe giant trees grow different bark, but then, you know, maybe it's just not a tree. Maybe it's just a funky um, structure of rock. I mean, there's definitely a lot of weird rock formations that have been developing that don't look tree-like at all, but do look kind of like that, or even weirder. Polygon rock. What was the name of that? Shoot, suddenly I can't remember the name of those things. Rock basalt. See, like these, okay, these are even weirder than the Devil's Tower, but they're not at all tree-shaped. But that kind of looks like it, but they're all these polygons, just stacks of, but it has kind of a similar look, but then it's not very tree-like at all. See all these? There's like, they're everywhere now. So supposedly volcanoes created them or whatever, but every shift there's like more of these whole islands of them, but they're not very tree-like. So Devil's Tower looks a lot like, you know, that. So it looks like Devil's Tower is kind of like a not as well formed version of these polygon ones. To me, for where we are now, I mean, like, I'm not even going to say, because that could all change in 5 minutes, you know, the timelines are. So there's another one. See, all of that has that same look, but now it's like falling over, and so it's supposed to be like funky volcano flow. And see, a lot of these do look a lot. They have that same look, but then they're flowing different, so they really do look like volcano flow. So I would say for now, the evidence is these are well, they look like more volcano flow to me. Like the whole mountain is covered with it. So yeah, but who knows? Who knows what the story will be? Went to the salon to get my permafrost done. You wish it was permanent. Most megaliths have changed shape a smidge. Yeah, either a smidge or a lot. Looks like there's all these different versions of what people remember permafrost. Oh, a little bit of thawing, no thawing. You know, I come from the distant timeline where it was permanent frost. Have seen that geometric rock all over. Yep. All right, you know what? My stream's getting wimpy, and it's 3:40 in the morning, so I think it's time for me to sign off. I have put in my 3.5 hours of ridiculous yapping. And so, thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Got some good material. Think good thoughts, everyone. This is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline.